in Israel and some of these other places to end up in college basketball, and we've sort of accepted that that's just the way things are going to go. I don't know if well, I do know that the crimson-colored glasses that I tend to find myself wearing on some of these issues obviously had me hopeful that Noam Yakov would be allowed to play. The fact that there are other guys, even locally, that had put on a Utah Jazz jersey and, as far as we know, are going to be able to play like for BYU, that's a little bit silly if Noam Yakov can't play. He went to his social media and expressed a lot of regret that this is happening, respect for the Utah Utah basketball program, for all the work that they put in incorporating him into the team culture and things like that. He's got a good relationship with Alex Jensen. For Coach Jensen, this has to be so incredibly frustrating, because despite all the effort to getting this young man cleared to play in 2026, 2027, the NCAA comes down and says no, and there doesn't appear to be like a very well-articulated reasoning behind it. If you want to say, no, he's not eligible, fine. Tell me why. Tell me how. Tell me the reasoning behind it, or the player precedent. We didn't let this guy play, so we can't let your guy play, whatever it is. And the unfortunate reality is Utah can't sit around. Northern Iowa transfer Trey Campbell effectively gets a greater opportunity at the University of Utah because of Noam Yakov being deemed ineligible. And it's not going to be framed that way by the staff, at least. It might not be talked about so directly by the staff, but it is effectively a contingency plan. You wanted this guy who you thought had some all Big 12 potential in Noam Yakov. You can't have him according to the NCAA. So you go to Trey Campbell, who averaged 13.7 points, almost 4 assists, almost 4 rebounds, and almost 2 steals, starting all 36 games at Northern Iowa. Second-team all-conference guy in the Missouri Valley Conference, which is the equivalent of in football being like an all-Mountain West type player. The Missouri Valley is a great mid-major conference. He was the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament Player of the Year, the outstanding player of the tournament, after Northern Iowa won 4 games in 4 days and a conference championship. 23 points, 6 3-pointers in the title game. All good stuff, right? So, yay, Trey Campbell. Happy to see that. The Noam Yakov thing is more of a head-scratcher than anything else right now, because there are guys that were on G League rosters or were in summer league camps that are going to be playing college basketball next year, as far as we can tell. I don't love that there's not a clear delineation between people who explored pro basketball or pro football or pro baseball or pro hockey or whatever sport, pro track and field, and the college athlete. You want those two things to remain separate. Right now, they are not fully separated. And because the NCAA is toothless, and because the lawyers and the billable hours remain undefeated, conferences now are starting to come out and establish their own rules here. Now, of course, the conference rules are going to be legally challenged, just like the NCAA rules or the federal rules or any other rule, right? There's going to be some district judge somewhere that says, Big Ten, I saw your announcement, because the Big Ten did put out an announcement that they will not allow pro players to return to college competition. They will not be eligible in the Big Ten. We're not going to take this. Sorry, Indiana. Sorry, Michigan. Sorry, Ohio State. We are not going to allow you to sign these bounce-back players. Not going to happen here. Even the SEC, whose member institutions are, let's face it, the most likely landing spots for all of these guys. LSU is like ground zero for this. And Lane Kiffin is defending the practice. He's saying if these bounce back guys aren't playing for you, they're going to be playing somewhere, so why wouldn't I want them to play for me? All right, Lane, we understand. But the SEC is meeting. The Big 12 is meeting. The ACC is meeting about putting rules in place to limit the bounce back eligibility of players who were in pro circles. And again, we talked about this yesterday. You're going to have to find the place where you draw the line. Is it you played in a preseason game? Is it you got invited to a camp? Is it you hired a pro agent? Well, no, we already pushed the line back from there. That's the old line. Okay, well, what about if you just participated in a pro practice or you signed a pro contract, even if it was a 10-day introductory, two-way, whatever? That seems to be where the conferences, who surprisingly are the ones stepping up to take responsibility for this, seems to be where they want to draw the line. And I'm in support of that for the sole reason that I just don't want it to get any crazier. I don't want us to see, there was all these joke posts going out on social media yesterday of guys who have been in the league for 4 years, but haven't really panned out as draft picks. All these, hey, so-and-so, Justin Fields has committed to play for LSU. So you've got the Big Ten saying, no, we're putting a rule in place, and it's going to be put in place today, that we do not allow bounce back players. If there's a better term you'd like me to use, by the way, than bounce back, let me know. 877-353-0700. But multiple sources are reporting that the Big Ten is putting a rule in place today that stops players from returning to college football from the NFL. And this would apply to any player who's declared for the NFL draft and did not withdraw their name. If you appeared on an NFL roster or you signed a contract with a pro league, you cannot be on a Big Ten roster. This, by the way, will extend to arena football, to the UFL, to the alternative professional football leagues. And the ruling comes on the heels of what's going on in the SEC. And even the SEC, again, you got to give credit where it's due, when most of the time I'm complaining about the SEC and their general lack of couth. The SEC is also looking at this and saying, maybe this isn't best for college football. Maybe we do need to explore some of what makes the most sense for high school athletes, for junior college athletes, more importantly, for athletes on actual rosters. And, of course, you apply it to the local rosters here, right? BYU basketball has expressed, and, well, they've got G League guys on the roster. They brought a G League guy onto the roster last year. And I, perhaps foolishly, maybe not, I was relatively up in arms about it on the air and privately. Like, what are we doing here, right? That player did not end up being anything significant for BYU. So maybe the reaction or the overreaction, the result kind of puts it in a different box. What would I have said? What would we have said? What should we have said had a bounce back player who came out of the G League or who came out of a well-established top-level international league ended up being an all-conference guy or a player of the year candidate or even a sixth man of the year candidate? I would want to put a little asterisk next to the wins. It's like, well, that's a professional player you brought back. But you had to zoom out a little bit further when we have Gordy Chiesa come in and talk about, we've been kind of fudging these lines with the European players and the overseas players for a lot of years. Because certain guys get into pro basketball when they're 15 years old in Lithuania or Slovenia or Israel or Germany or whatever. And then at some point, they get on the radar of a college basketball team, and especially with NIL now, that's a much more lucrative prospect. And so these guys are coming over to play, and the NBA just kind of looks the other way when it comes to all this stuff. And now they're starting to with G League contracts, and now apparently they're starting to with Summer League contracts as well, and the added years of eligibility. I think we're long past arguing in favor of the purity of college sports because there's not a lot of purity at top level of college sports. If you want purity in college sports, if you want love of the game type stuff, you kind of have to go watch 1AA ball. Maybe it's still there in the Mountain West and the Sun Belt and places like that where most guys are not playing under lucrative contracts. Maybe you got to go all the way down to D2 and D3 and JUCO ball where guys are playing for the love of the game. But are they playing for the love of the game or are they playing for the opportunity to then make the money? And by the way, I don't think playing for money disqualifies you from loving the game. But there are serious questions about where loyalty lies now, whether that loyalty should be able to have a price tag on it. If you criticize someone for not being loyal enough until a certain price point is met, and then it's just like, okay, well, that's just, now everyone's going to be disloyal for that kind of money, right? I mean, there's, it's like the college football version of Indecent Proposal, where it's like, yeah, I'm going to adhere to these promises and these commitments and these oaths until we get to a level where it's like, that's probably enough money where I can compromise my principles. And there's plenty of coaches who have set their principles aside a long time ago. There's plenty of players now who are, we're deep enough into this NIL thing. There's plenty of young players of like coming out of high school type players that they haven't really existed with any level of mental maturity in an environment other than this one yet because it moves so fast. And we're now going into year 5, year 6 of this thing. Like, that means the commitments coming out of high school kids now, they were 12 when the college football players started to be paid. And when you're 12, you're not making any decision based on principle or morals or anything like that. You're not forming those types of ideas about things. You're following examples. And if you're following examples of the guys that you look up to, and the guys that you look up to happen to be the junior and senior year guys that are at the high school you're going to go to, the big brother of your best friend who happens to be a big-time recruit. Like, not everybody has an NFL dad who's a traditionalist to follow in those footsteps. You know what I mean? Like, we need to get Haloti on the air sooner than later. Haloti Ngata, who is one of the greatest football players that this state has ever produced. I mean, it's, when you talk about homegrown, it's a very, very short list that he's near the top of, right? He didn't play his college ball here, of course. His son is going to follow in his footsteps to the University of Oregon. His son, Sam, is an outside linebacker at Olympus High School. Shout out Casey Evans, the former Utah safety, who is the head coach there. Haloti's on that staff.
Is Sam the Sam? See that linebacker?
It's a good question. He probably is. I don't know if he's the Sam backer or not.
And by the way, boo, stay home. No, just kidding. Go, like, that's
James.
great.
I love that James's first words on the show today are a dad joke pun of the most cringy quality. It's perfect.
I mean, football guy over here.
Yeah,
I know. Mike, Sam,
right? But
all that stuff.
If you follow the way that the Sam Ngata commitment and the Sam Ngata sort of like recruitment situation went, it was not full of headlines and flip-flops and craziness, which, by the way, Haloti's was.
Was it really?
Haloti was committed to BYU like twice.
Oh, man.
He ended up at Oregon, obviously. Like I think Nebraska was in the mix because Nebraska was freakish powerhouse back then.
Celeste Moa-esque, if you will.
There was some of that going on.
Yeah.
right?
No disrespect, just pointing out.
And there's a context thing that happens here where, again, I haven't talked to Haloti about this, and I want to get him on the show and maybe get Sam on the show so we can talk about this. But like, there's a difference when your dad walked the path that he walked, and Gage Weddle is someone we talk about on the show all the time because we talk to his dad all the time, and he's obviously a major target in the 2028 class for not only Utah but for every damn school in the country worth of salt. Big target for Georgia, big target for Ohio State, big target for Utah, right? Those guys are always going to have a different frame of reference because their dads did this thing at the very, very highest level. There's also not the same level of urgency for those individuals to cash in on the financial opportunities that the NIL stuff represents. And we talked yesterday about how for players, it just kind of makes too much sense to maximize your earning potential. And so, of course, I'm going to hire a lawyer. And, of course, I'm going to hope that lawyer can get me an extra year of eligibility and all that stuff. But when we keep talking about where are the adults in the room, some of these kids and some of these programs almost don't have the right adults in the room. I'm bringing up a couple of families with local connections who seem like they do very much have the right adults in the room. And so those guys are guiding things properly. They're setting the right example. They're talking the right way.
Well, you think about not local, but you also think about Arch Manning's story getting to college. It's a similar feel to what you're talking about with the Nadas and with the Weddles, where it's clear that when you have parents, uncles, whatever the case may be, who have played at a high level in the NFL. In the case of the Mannings, it's parents, uncles, and grandfather. But anyway, it's clear when you have that kind of influence guiding you as a teenager, you find that exception to what we're talking about, where these 12-year-olds are looking at their idols who are sophomores and juniors in college, who are just money grab here and left and right, because that's the wild, wild west system that is in place. When it comes to Arch Manning, when it comes to Sam Nada, when it comes to Gage Weddle, they have people close to them saying, no, like, that's actually not the best way to do it. That's the way that it seems the most enticing way, and sure, maybe you can make the most money in college that way, but the best way to do it long term is to be measured and to have some loyalty and all that stuff. Like it's no surprise that these kids that were pointing out as exceptions, potential exceptions to what's going on, have the parents and the family members that they have being their example.
Back in my day, all of you kids out there, if you transferred high schools, it was like the most insane, unthinkable thing that you would ever leave your friends behind, leave your teammates behind, and go somewhere else to play for a different coach or a different team in high school. Unless your parents moved, you were not leaving the high school that you started out at. 10 years after I was in high school, that started to be a thing. And now it's darn near what college is, where if you're a great player for Jordan High School, or you're a great player for Davis High School, although Davis is pretty good, so maybe they're a bad example. If you're a great player for whoever, Corner Canyon's going to call you eventually.
Yeah, like, think about
Sky Ridge is going to be like, hey, would you like to file an address here in our boundaries?
Get a waiver here.
I mean,
yeah.
There's like this type of stuff used to be a lot more rare. And again, we're looking at a group of athletes now who have been conditioned by even the responsible parties around them to look out for number one. And there's going to be a time in all of our lives where that is the most important thing, where you have to take care of yourself first, and by extension, you have to take care of your family. So you're going to be disloyal to a boss. You're going to take a different job. You're going to tell somebody that this relationship is no longer good for me, so I'm looking out for number one. And even though this is going to hurt you, I am going to move on from this in some kind of way. Like, All of us have those moments in our lives. Most of us, it didn't happen when we were 15 years old or 16 or 17 years old. And that's what's going on right now. And those 15, 16, and 17-year-olds that were conditioned by the environment around them and the people around them and the atmosphere of pro sports and the atmosphere of college sports that they're watching, they're now the ones that are like, they are the bulk of the roster. That is everyone in college football now.
I mean, think about former running Ute now, Terrence Brown. I think he played in 3 or 4 different states while he was in high school.
It's wild, right? And now you've got these situations where guys are finding that the pro exploration that they tried did not work out for them. And so they're like, all right, now let me go back to do the thing that's going to work out best for me. And again, I don't even begrudge the individual this, because if I could get another year of football back and I thought I could actually compete, much less being paid for it, heck yeah, give me another year of college football, man. That sounds like an absolute blast. Oh, I'm going to make an extra $200,000 or $500,000 or $700,000 or maybe $1 million to do it when I'm not getting that in the NFL? Great, wonderful, yes. But again, that has to come at the expense of somebody. And even in the case of Noam Yakov and Utah, a contingency plan had to be put in place. And a strategy has to be developed. For Lane Kiffin's strategy is, I will take whoever, wherever, whenever. And he's at a place now in LSU. If you got bad grades, Lane can figure it out for you. If you have a couple arrests on your record, Lane Kiffin can get you on the roster. If you scored 2 touchdowns in a preseason game, Lane's got a spot for you, right? There's no principled situation there. The Big Ten is dictating to their coaches now, you're not making those phone calls, guys. Our reputation is A, and this practice is B. We are not going to allow this. The SEC, I think, is probably hearing from the Lane Kiffins of the world and the Kirby Smarts of the world. And who else is like, I bet Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, having a tiny bit of knowledge of what Kalen DeBoer seems to be like, I bet Kalen DeBoer at Alabama is just like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to mess with this. He's a high school pipeline type guy. That's what he wants. He'll take the transfers because you have to now, right? Dabo Swinney is not like, let me get as many of these pro players coming back. He didn't even want transfers for the first few years.
Dabo is going to be the guy who's going to, whether it's feigning, being principled about this, or it's actually genuine, he's going to be loud about, we're not doing that at Clemson, all right? They're not coming to our Death Valley. They can go to the other Death Valley.
LSU is the wild, wild west of the wild, wild west. Whatever the craziest saloon-ridden outlaw den of the old Wild West. What was that? Deadwood? Was it Ogden?
The Dodge City, Kansas.
Was it Dodge City? That is LSU now.
Not the name of it from Wyatt Earp or
LSU is just like, come here. RJ Luis. Tell me why RJ Luis,
oh my gosh,
who signed multiple NBA contracts.
Wasn't he former jazz man for half a minute, or am I thinking of a different Luis?
I don't remember.
There was someone.
He's been granted a temporary injunction to play college basketball. Guess where? LSU.
And Will Wade, former LSU head coach, and again, bounce back head coach for LSU, if you will. He was notorious for doing anything and everything to get players before when he was at LSU. So he's that Lane Kiffin type player on the basketball side.
So I'm going to give you, this is going to be a long quote, but just bear with me, from an SEC phone call with presidents and chancellors in a video conference. College athletes, not former professional athletes, have been at the heart of Southeastern Conference. Individuals who choose to leave college athletics, sign professional playing contracts, and compete professionally should not be then permitted to return to college competition. Wording matters. They should not be allowed. Not yet saying we are not going to allow them to play at the SEC. They're saying they should not be allowed. Allowing that to occur will blur the line between college and professional sports. Newsflash, that's been happening for years. create significant competitive equity concerns, and reduce opportunities for high school and current college athletes. That's a problem that nobody wants to address and nobody wants to talk about. College sports are for college athletes. The current confusion around eligibility standards emphasizes the need to advance the Protect College Sports Act. So suddenly, presidents and chancellors in the SEC are on board with the Protect College Sports Act, which, remember, under the revised language, does allow 5 years to play 5, which started this problem in the first place, because a lot of guys who thought they were done now are looking at their peers and saying, well, that guy that was on my team last year is going to have 5 years. Just because I graduated in May means I'm not going to have 5 years? No, give me 5 years, right? Again, these presidents and chancellors are deciding, well, we have to draw the line at the timeline. I possess no infinity stones. We're not going to go back, and we're not going to fix all of this. These people who never got their 5 years of eligibility.
By the way, if you do come up with the infinity stones, if you happen to, just be careful snapping.
Don't snap your fingers.
We don't want half the universe to just disappear.
So the
PSA.
So the SEC presidents and chancellors are going to meet on Tuesday and on Wednesday. These meetings had already been scheduled, and they're going to, I assume, come up with some sort of thing that the Big Ten is rolling out today that says, no mas, we're not signing these athletes. And then they're going to have one of their member institutions at least, probably multiple, but one especially that happens to be a pretty darn good program at LSU and one of the more high-profile headline-generating programs. They're going to say in Baton Rouge, well, hold on a minute. I already gave this guy a spot on the roster. I already signed an NIL agreement with this kid.
He already signed up for classes.
He's
Greg.
already enrolled. We learned that being enrolled in classes doesn't really stop a transfer or movement very much. But like the SEC, right now, as far as I'm aware, the Big Ten does not have a pipeline of guys that are on the bounce back that are like, yeah, I'm going to go play for Ohio State. Part of the reason for that is because Ohio State
already got pros at Ohio State, so
Ohio State's already loaded up with pros. Kyle Whittingham at Michigan, one of the other blue blood programs, is not going to be this dude.
Absolutely not.
Right? He's just not. I don't think Kurt Cignetti at Indiana is going to do this either.
I don't think so. He strikes me as more like Kyle Whittingham.
If you're like
the SEC,
if you're Wisconsin or you're Northwestern with Chip Kelly, you're like, you know what? We need something to help us get ahead. So maybe those types of schools are going to explore this a little bit more aggressively.
Campbell, Penn State, I don't know.
But if you're in the SEC that has traditionally and always, going back to the beginning of football history, been willing to do whatever is possible, even outside of the rules, to make your teams as dominant as possible, it is a massive, massive statement coming from SEC country that group is willing to say, this shouldn't be happening. Let's examine this. They haven't put a rule in place yet. They haven't declared that they're going to put a rule in place yet. But presidents and chancellors saying this is not good for college athletics is the most progressive thing we have heard from the SEC in 50 years.
Yeah, it's shocking. When I read it, OC, I was like, are we sure this is the SEC who made this statement? Especially because it came after Lane Kiffin unabashedly said, yeah, of course I'm going after him. If I don't, someone else will, which you can't say that Lane's wrong there. You can't fault that line of thinking at all. But, yeah, it's gotten way too out of hand, OC, and I don't have a lot of hope that it's going to be reined in anytime soon. I love that the Big Ten is doing, from a conference level, is saying we're drawing this line. It's not a blurry line. It's a solid line that we will not cross. My question is, when are Big Ten schools and Big Ten Conference going to be sued by some of these players who want to bounce back from the pros?
Oh, it's right now.
And then they can't actually stand by that line that they drew.
Well, that's the thing. This Protect College Sports Act that now the SEC and the Big Ten are behind after some modified language, some going back and forth. The Protect College Sports Act, part of what it does is it becomes federal statute.
Right.
where these district court judges and these local
Get an
judges.
injunction from Colorado, it doesn't that doesn't matter, and also you're probably not getting that injunction.
Right, because that judge is going to be like, well, this doesn't go anywhere anyway. So
Yeah.
So maybe this is the thing that gets it across the finish line. And you know what's funny, James? Notice this. Follow the money. This was already a question and already an issue in college basketball.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't enough to push this over the finish line. Now that it's becoming an issue for college football, now everyone is taking a real stand. Isn't it funny how that works? Even though basketball and March Madness specifically is a multi-billion-dollar affair, it is only rules that will affect football that actually matter when it comes to college sports.
Hey, what about these bounce-back pro gymnasts, OC? That's a huge problem in the gymnast world.
Okay, good. Yeah, maybe.
I don't know if that's the case. By the way, speaking of the term bounce back, Derek, our guy Derek, who texts every day, we love you, Derek. By the way, we appreciate you. He says, let's call them what they are: non-college pro players.
Okay.
That's what I was going to chime in with too, OC. Why don't we just call them pros instead of bounce back players? And then we got an email from Lewis. Not bounce back players, boomerang players. Good day.
Ooh. This is Lewis?
This is Lewis by email. Or, excuse me, I think the last name. It came in L. Lewis. Lewis might be his last name. Mr. Lewis.
Henceforth, the bounce back player will be known as a boomerang player.
And we got to say it with the accent, mate.
Yeah, these boomerang players, mate.
Good day.
On ya? All right, so they are officially called boomerang players here on the Sean O'Connell Show.
From Oz, right? I saw this on Twitter. You and Zachariah had a little argument over nicknames for Australia.
Can I give context to this for a
Yeah.
second? So our guy Zachariah, some of you listened to him, and some of you made it so that he would no longer fill in for me because you were so critical of his style, and I'm mad at you for that because
he's got a great podcast, as I understand.
Yes.
He's on the comeback here.
love me some Zachariah. He's a
Shout out.
He's a complete wild card and a total yahoo. And we were somehow talking about we were talking about some rugby player or some situation that was going on with an Australian athlete, right? And he has some weird connection, like a brother-in-law or whatever, that is either from there or there was a person, and I was like, in the text thread, I was like, does he actually live in Oz? And Zachariah was just like, what? What is that? And I was like, what are you talking about?
You mean like where the Wicked Witch of the West lives? Is that
like,
what you're saying?
I was like, in Australia. He was like, what? No, what are you talking about? I'm like, Oz, dude. It's Oz. It's one of the nicknames it's Down Under. It's Oz. He's like, I didn't know that. I was like, how are you 42 years old and you didn't know that? So
I didn't know this either, OC. But I'm also not yet 42 years old, so I got some time.
I was like, everyone knows that one of the nicknames of Australia is Oz. And if you refer to Oz as a place, they know you're talking about Australia. And he's like, that's not true. Nobody knows that. So he put it on his podcast. He put it on a Twitter poll. And I got blown out of the water. It was like 80% to 20 that people didn't know that Oz was Australia.
Do we need to call one of your Australian friends? Because you no doubt have an Australian friend, the amount you travel.
I've got a couple of Australian friends.
Yeah.
I also like.
We need to get Tom Hackett on the line.
We did a show in this very studio with Tom Hackett.
We need to get Tom on the line just to ask him what are the nicknames for Australia, and is Oz one of them?
Anyway, that's where that came from. We're way over time.
Good night.
The SEC and the Big Ten and the Big 12 and the ACC all either are putting rules out today or they're at least meeting to examine the possibility of rules against boomerang players, pro athletes coming back to college sports. This is attendant to Noam Yakov being ruled ineligible at the University of Utah. Meanwhile, LSU's got R.J. Luis, who is eligible because of a temporary injunction. You see the inconsistencies and the problems here. What can fix it? What can save it? Well, apparently the Protect College Sports Act is our best chance. We're going to focus in more on Utah football and this season specifically. One of the great existential questions of this season is how good will the offensive line be? One of the stats we use to indicate the health of an offensive line is sacks allowed. How many sacks will this Utah football offensive line surrender in 2026? We'll get to that conversation next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Well, welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. How many sacks is the Utah offensive line going to give up in the 2026 season? I have set the over-under at 19 and a half sacks. 877-353-0700. If you want to hit the over, 19 and a half, 20 or more. If you think Utah will keep it under 19 sacks allowed, tell me under. Or go to @RealOCSports on Twitter and click your vote on the Twitter poll, or do both. That's the best way to do it. 877-353-0700. Now, a couple of things to think about here when you make your prognostication. In 2025, the Utah offensive line, with 2 first-round draft picks starting at left and right tackle for you, gave up 14 sacks. If you remember this time last year, we were talking about how Devin Dampier was the most elusive quarterback in all of college football at New Mexico. He was sacked 4 times at New Mexico. I think that offensive line gave up a total of 6 sacks on the season, and I think Devin was only responsible for 4 of those. Now, that was the much more mobile Devin Dampier. The injuries and the affected mobility certainly had something to do with Devin getting sacked more. Also stepping up to a new level of competition where the defenders are better, where the coverages are better, where the coaching is better, where the disguising of the blitzes is all better, right? So Devin Dampier gave up more or got sacked more at Utah than he did at New Mexico, even though his offensive line at Utah was significantly better. 14 sacks surrendered by Utah last year. Why did I set it at 19 and a half if last year they gave up 14? Well, it's a brand new offensive line, reason number one. And all of these over-unders, I'm trying to see if your prediction, your prognostication for Utah football statistically keeps them in the top 5. All right? Cincinnati only gave up 8 sacks last year. Kansas State gave up 13. Utah gave up 14. BYU gave up 16. Houston and Kansas both gave up 19, and UCF gave up 20. So the line of were you top 5 or tied for top 5 at least is 19 sacks from last year. And I know I'm playing into recency bias, whereas the year previous to that, 19 sacks. Remember, this was a more aggressive passing year in the conference. Teams were passing a lot more in the conference in 2024. The year prior to last, Utah gave up 25 sacks and 19 sacks, which is our line of demarcation on my over-under question, would have been good for top 7 rather than top 5. Are you giving up an extra 5 sacks over what you had last year? Well, traditional logic would tell you that replacing all 5 starters on an offensive line, yeah, you probably will. You look a little bit deeper into it, you acknowledge the quick passing game of Kevin McGivern's offense and the priority that they're going to put on getting the ball out of the pocket quickly. Also, the fact that Devin Dampier has told us himself he feels a lot healthier and will probably be back to his more elusive ways potentially. That then brings the number back down. If you want to really look at it aggressively, you say, all right, well, where was Kevin McGivern last year? And what were the sacks allowed numbers like at Utah State? And that will give you a little bit of a heart attack. 42 sacks allowed, dead last in the Mountain West Conference last year. Bryson Barnes, as an individual starting quarterback, was the 4th most sacked QB in all of college football last year. Neither of those are stats you want to be a part of. Now, it's also not necessarily an indicator that your quarterback is doing anything wrong or is bad, or it's just, their offensive line play, playbook, a lot of these things come into play here.
Mobility. Yeah.
Lenoris Sellers is a highly thought of quarterback, right? He was sacked 42 times last year.
That's insane, especially because he has that unbelievable mobility thing to him. You'd expect a guy to be elusive enough to avoid being sacked that much, but it just goes to show there's a number of factors that go into this.
So he was number three in the country, third most sacked. Bryson Barnes was 4, as I mentioned. I'm leaving out the names that you don't recognize or you have not heard, but guys that like Jaron Kiave Sangapolatele at Cal. He is going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist this year, okay? That guy was sacked 30 times. Noah Fafita at Arizona, another person with some escapability, mobility. He was sacked 29 times at Arizona last year. And they had an NFL offensive lineman on their O-line. Taylon Green, the former Boise State quarterback who's now at Arkansas, incredibly mobile guy. He was sacked 27 times. Darian Mensah, now at Miami, formerly at Duke, he was sacked 27 times. Nico Iamaleava, he was also sacked 27 times. So there's multiple factors that play into this. And I was looking at this total. I was looking at what Utah has done with great offensive lines, what Utah has done with escapable quarterbacks, what Utah has done when they're more of a pass-heavy offense versus a run-heavy offense in terms of surrendering sacks. And, of course, I want to keep them in that top 5 range for the Big 12 Conference. So 19.5 over or under, giving up 19.5 sacks as a Utah offense this year. James, what say you?
I'm going to say under. We were talking about this off air, OC. It's funny that another reason why it's funny that that's the number is because you mentioned it. Devin Dampier, we were raving about how he was an unsackable guy at New Mexico, and we were raving about just how good this offensive line is, Fano and Lomu at the tackles, and we were joking that maybe he doesn't get sacked all year because of the talent on the offensive line and because he proved to be darn near unsackable at New Mexico with a lot lesser offensive line. Also, though, a lot lesser pass rush talent that he's playing against for sure had some to do with that. He gets sacked 13 times. I think we both said somewhere around 8 or 9 is what we predicted last year.
I think last year
because of all those factors.
Last year, I believe I set the over-under at 9.5 because it was like, are you going to be in double digits or are you going to stay under double digits?
I think we both went under.
Yeah, and they ended up with the over.
They ended up, but only by a little bit. There, though, only giving up 14 sacks is still really good. So anyway, it's just really interesting. Same quarterback, and the over/under is 10 more, but it's not the same O-line, right? The other thing you got to think about is Devin is a lot healthier now, as you would expect, than he was for most of last season, where his own father is quoted by Jason Batacchio in the Salt Lake Tribune as saying, I don't think I saw him ever play more than 70% healthy last season because of the multiple sports hernias and the ankle that was hampering him all year long. So all that, despite the questions about the offensive line that just will not be answered until we see them play, the other stuff about Devin makes me feel like it's going to be under. I'm not going to be as bold as I was last year and be like, oh yeah, it's single digits, but I think it'll be under 19.
If you go back to 2024, guess who the most sacked person in the country was?
2024. It wasn't Bryson Barnes.
It was Shedeur Sanders.
Oh, that's right.
42 times he was sacked. Guess who was number 2? You'll never guess this. Fernando Mendoza, while he was still at Cal, was the second most sacked quarterback in the entire country. He got sacked 41 times.
So what you're saying is you get sacked near the most in the country one year, the next year you'll win the Heisman Trophy. That's what you're saying?
That's right, which means who was number 2 last year? So that means this year's Heisman, based on that measurable, Jacob Clark from Missouri State is going to win the Heisman this year.
Yep, that was just right on the tip of my tongue. I was about to say that's my Heisman pick for this year, Jacob Clark. You know what's funny that why we're having this discussion, OC, on the Dan Patrick Show, they got to talking about David Carr, who was the most sacked man in NFL history.
Which, by the way, thank goodness, because prior to him, Alex Smith was on a run.
Oh, was he really? So David Carr, do you know he was sacked 76 times in the season? Just beat up. And then a couple years later, maybe the next season, it was 68, the third most ever in one season. So, yeah, that guy was just beat up. That's a guy that anyone who's an NFL fan from the early to mid 2000s, that's a guy you always go, who do you feel the most sorry for as an NFL fan in like NFL history? And for me, it's David Carr. Like he got put in an expansion team situation with the Houston Texans. They had nothing around him. He was obviously a great talent. It just dropped back and got dropped down.
David Carr, like you said, number 1 and number 3, 72 and 68. Randall Cunningham was sacked 72 times in 1986. Caleb Williams was sacked 68 times in 2024 with the Chicago Bears.
Tied for third with David Carr, yeah.
That's a bad deal.
And then one other thing, you mentioned Bryson Barnes was near the top last season. That's a guy that, especially that 2024 season, OC, his last one or was that 2023? One of his last year at Utah, 2023. It just felt like he got hit over and over again then too. Unfortunately for Bryson Barnes, he just seemed like he always just got hit a lot whenever he played. But tough as nails, man. That's what was so endearing about Bryson Barnes as a Utah football player, is he just always got up and he always just did his best every single play, even though at the Pac-12 level anyway, he just wasn't quite as talented enough to be a viable starting quarterback. But he just tough as nails, man, and he just unfortunately always got hit, it seemed like.
He did not make the top 25 of sacks taken in the 2023 season. Shedeur Sanders was number 2 that year.
He's the David Carr of college football. Is that what's going on there?
Dude, am I starting to feel bad for Shedeur Sanders? Is that what's happening right here on the show? Live? That's an uncomfortable place for me to be. You know who deserves an advocate? Maybe Shedeur Sanders deserves an advocate. If you have been in an accident, if you've been jogging and tripped over something on the sidewalk that caused an injury for you, if you've been shopping in a store and there was a spill that caused you to slip and pull a hammy that maybe you had to see the doctor for, whatever it is, you may be entitled to some compensation. 801-355-5550, or you could go to UtahAdvocates.com. Consultation is available 24/7, 365. They are no-cost consultations. You don't pay a dime out of pocket while the advocates work on recovering compensation that you deserve. It's only after the case, after the award has been given. If you're in a neighborhood with a lot of dogs and maybe you've got that annoying neighbor dog that bit you on the foot and it got a little infected and you had to get some antibiotics for it, we know that you don't want to go out and you don't want to be overly litigious and you don't want to attack people that are in your neighborhood. But guess what? It's the insurance companies that are denying these claims and refusing to pay things out. That's why you need the advocates to help you along the way. Motorcycle accident, auto accident, shopping accident, jogging accident of any kind. You did not deserve to be in an accident, but you do deserve an advocate. 801-355-5550 or UtahAdvocates.com. Tell them OC sent you. Some of your reaction on this sack total question I just put out there. Over or under 19.5 sacks surrendered by the University of Utah this year. Tell me what you think. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. 78 says under 19 and a half sacks. I don't think by much. Maybe 15 to 17 allowed. Astute observation from Texter 2047. Last year's total of 14 was tied for the lowest number. 2025, 2021, 2002, all very low numbers, 14 sacks. 2047 says, I guess we'll have about 20.
So he's going slightly over.
I mean, about 20 or 20 is over. He's hitting the over, which is why 19 and a half is the number I set it at, because we all think that there's going to be some mobility, some escapability, and hopefully not too many sacks taken. But 20 is still a good year.
It absolutely is.
20 is still a great season if you can only give up 20. If you can give up in the teens, it's an even better year.
By the way, lowest sacks, I mean, how much did you have to do with the 2004 team that only allowed 10 sacks?
That was all me.
That was all you. You're clapping really hard on the sidelines.
No, you know what it was? You know what it was? Is that I was the guy blitzing on scout team during the week.
You were getting them ready.
And they never saw a blitz that incredible. So it was just like, if you could stop my blitz when you got to game day, easy work.
Urban Meyer said as much to you, I'm sure, one time.
Probably not.
Probably not.
To give it some context, all right, let's go back to 2022, shall we? That year, Oregon gave up 5 sacks. There were 20 teams nationally that gave up 15 or fewer sacks in that 2022 season. Utah happened to be one of them. You look at the 2023 year, and again, not a whole lot of teams under that 19 and a half number. You have to be – BYU was number 30 in the country, tied for number 30 in the country with 19 sacks allowed. So you got to be – like, you're a top 25, top 30 team in terms of protection if you're giving up the under. If you're hitting the over, now you're outside of that box, right? You go to the 2024 season. There were 35 teams in the country that gave up 19 or fewer sacks. You know what's crazy? I didn't do this on purpose, but Utah State was at 20 sacks. BYU is at 19 sacks in these years that I'm looking at. It's like there's a local connection every time I look at a number. It's freaking me out a little bit. Last year, Utah had 14, as I already mentioned. There were 27 teams in the country that had 19 or fewer last year. So are you staying in that category? Are you staying top 5 in the Big 12? Are you staying top 25-ish in the country? Over or under? Give me your answers based on that. At Real OC Sports or at 877-353-0700. Jeff Schwartz played the offensive line position. We're going to ask him if he thinks Utah, with a brand new offensive line, Jordan Gross is the coach, Devin Dampier is the quarterback, will they give up over or under 19 and a half sacks in the upcoming campaign? Jeff Schwartz next on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome to hour number 2. Welcome in my good friend Jeff Schwartz, former Oregon Duck, who will talk about what The Athletic called his alma mater in an article yesterday. Jeff Schwartz, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. Getting ready. We got football this weekend, like real football.
Real football. Week 0, TCU versus North Carolina. You live in North Carolina. How much are people hyped over that matchup?
Oh, dude, it's dominating talking points. My kids come home from school like, Dad, everyone's talking about North Carolina TCU. I was like, I'm sure they are, buddy. No, I mean, no one. I mean, I think people are just after the Lombardi stuff, and I think just people from North Carolina just can't wait for this to be over, and move on and find a different coach for this program.
I'm putting out over-unders for the Utah football program, trying to hit some statistical predictions. And today's an important one for you offensive line types. It's a brand new unit, brand new offensive line coach. The anticipation is that Devin Dampier is going to be healthier this year and more escapable, more mobile. Last year, Utah gave up 14 sacks on the season.
Okay.
New Mexico, a couple years back, gave up 5 with him as their starting quarterback. And I'm setting the total at 19.5, which would be good enough for top 5 in last year's Big 12, top 7 in most years. It's usually, kind of a top 25 nationally, top 30 number if you give up fewer than 19 sacks, or I should say 19 or fewer sacks since we're doing over-under. What would you say if you're predicting over or under 19.5 sacks for Utah football in a year where they've got all that new stuff up front?
I'd say under. Think about their schedule, first of all, right? Like, who are you really fearful is going to rush the passer in a way that really makes this unit stress? I don't think there's a great answer for that, right? You miss some of the better defenses in your conference, so that's sort of a very helpful for this young group as well. You mentioned Dampier, right? Being able to move and whatnot and to create different ways to avoid sacks. And two, in college football, really in all football, but the way you can run the ball in college football, that allows you to have very short third downs, right? And a lot of times you have a short third down and you don't get sacked on 3rd and 2, right? You run the ball on 3rd and 2. Like you do different things on 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 1 than you would on 3rd and 7, right? Like when is Utah going to have a ton of pure dropbacks? Now, the only thing that is tough about this, right, is sometimes quarterback scrambles run out of bounds. Like they can be counted as sacks when they're not really sacks, Sean. Like that's the one thing I worry about with anything like this. But I think in the end, I think under 19 is very doable for this Utah offensive line.
It would be a big thing for this offense because I think they are going to throw a little bit more this year. Last year, they were the number 1 run offense in the Big 12 and a top 5 run offense nationally. So I think you're going to pass a little bit more this year. And if you can keep that quarterback upright, you can keep that pocket clean, and you can lean on his, natural gifts as an escape artist. I do think it's a number you can hit, but that's why I said it where it is, because if you do, good things, great things potentially. If you don't, I'd probably be a little disappointed by that.
What are the reports out of camp about the offensive line? Obviously, you don't get to see very much and whatnot, and I'm sure there's not much information. I did see Jordan post a picture the other day with those guys after camp. I saw that. Everyone looks excited for the season. But what do you got from camp so far?
Well, depending on who you talk to, right, there's a certain level of optimism, I think a genuine level of optimism. But, and maybe you can tell me, should we be concerned about this or not, we are in game prep now, and they are not really ready to say who the best 5 are or who the starting 5 are. Camp ended on Saturday, and now they're doing install, and it's a long install period, right? And you're going up against the University of Idaho, so you could probably really extend your camp and those position battles a couple of days if you need to. But, I was really pressing hard on some people and trying to, get some information.
Right.
Who are the top 5? We don't know yet. If you had to start a group of 5 today, do you feel comfortable that you have the right 5? We're still figuring that out. So from a timeline perspective, is that a worry?
No, I mean, Oregon's doing the same thing right now. Oregon, I think, doesn't know who their starting 5 is going to be. Then they have an idea of who it's going to be, but you don't know sometimes till you actually play the game, Sean, right? You don't know till you get guys, that are in there for a game. I mean, look, there are guys that just aren't as good when the lights come on. Just that's what it is, right? And you have to, you got to play those guys. Some guys, there's young guys that are not ready to play yet until they're ready to play. You got to give them those reps to see if they're ready to play. So I wouldn't be surprised if Utah even uses the first couple of games to rotate guys, right? I mean, it's commonplace to play maybe 8 offensive linemen early in the season, right? You figure out where your best guys are. Maybe it's a conditioning thing too. You want to make sure you're in shape to play a full game. So you just rotate guys through, and you have the luxury of doing that with some of your early seasons. It would not surprise me if they didn't have like a firm group, for a couple of weeks. I'm
going to bring back one that I don't think we had an opportunity to talk about. Kelvin Obot, who's the highest rated recruit in program history, and is an offensive lineman, played tackle in high school. We've heard in spring that maybe they'll test him out at guard a little bit. I also put an over-under on 5.5 games started this year for Kelvin Obot. And a lot of people were calling the under. And I really think, like, a guy like that, you're bringing him in to start right away. I know it's harder on an offensive line than at other positions. But I think it's going to be over. I think he's going to start more than half the season. That's why I set it at 5.5. What would your assumption be?
I mean, I imagine they'd like him to play, right? And there's no redshirt rule anymore, right? So, you can play as many games as you want and get that year back. So I would – and he knows Jordan Gross, obviously, right? He's the one that Jordan coached in high school, right? So
Correct.
He knows Jordan. That plays a role in this, right? Just having a familiarity with the offensive line coach, I would imagine, can't hurt you, in the situation. I think Utah would love if this was over, right? They would love that if he played, I should say, more than 5 games.
I think that you need him to. Well, I think that over, and also the question is, what about, is it going to be a guard or tackle? That one's harder for me to predict. You have a guy you brought in from the national championship Montana State team at the 1AA level, Cedric Jefferson, who is factoring into the right tackle discussion. We all think Zaraway Williams, who's this gigantic monster, 6'8", left tackle, is going to be one of the mainstays, right? So maybe him at left tackle. There's a guy named Ike Garcia, who's a local kid, who is a highly rated recruit, who hasn't been able to stay healthy. He is now in his 3rd year in the program, and apparently it was a big battle with him and the Jefferson guy at right tackle. And, there's nothing wrong with, if you're going to use the true freshman, letting him be a guard for the first year and then bumping him out to tackle as need, right? Or no?
You don't really go out from, like, you kind of just, like, once you move inside, that's the end of it.
Really?
You don't see many guys going back out to tackle.
Like Zane Beatles,
injury can dictate that sometimes, where guys have to go inside because of injury, but a lot of times you don't start a guard and move back out to tackle. That's something that doesn't happen very often.
I feel like Utah football has done that with a couple of guys, though. Maybe that's why my view on this is skewed.
Maybe Utah's done it. I just know from other experiences, from definitely the NFL, you rarely go inside and go back out in your career. I mean, obviously I did not do that. I stayed inside once I moved inside. Now, if the idea is we want to get our best 5, he's one of our best 5. He's our 3rd best tackle. We want him to play. Okay, but this is the thing about, though. If he plays well at guard, you're probably gonna feel like you should just keep him there. Like, why move a player who's really good at a position, right? We could find some more tackles. Like that's where it comes down to, right? If he plays well enough at guard, you're probably like, well, let's just keep him at guard.
But aren't you supposed to put your best athletes on the offensive line at tackle?
I mean, probably that's why I think you just keep him at tackle. Don't even bother putting him at guard.
Okay. Well, I think that would affect the number of over-under on, like, how many games he actually starts.
I just would be surprised if he played guard for a season and went back out to tackle. That's something that's not very common.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll see how it plays out for Kelvin Obot. People are probably so sick of hearing me talk about him, but I'm excited about.
It's important for the program to have guys succeed like that, because it really opens up the door to other guys that want to come into the program in similar type players, right? Like if you can get players like him to play well early on, then you can really sell that to other 5-star recruits, right? Like that, it's an important piece if he's able to do it this year.
So the Big Ten is going to put a rule in place that you cannot boomerang. You can't go into the pros in any way and then come back. And the SEC's talking about it. The Big 12's talking about it. The ACC's talking about it. Really, it's going to affect the SEC more than anyone because those are the schools that are like, academics, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We want you, right? Your thoughts on guys that, were undrafted free agents or maybe even late-round picks who get the message pretty early, you're not going to stick in the NFL this year, wanting to come back for that extra year of eligibility.
So these schools are very clearly using whatever power they have left to have some sort of semblance of uniformity, right? Because there's no power left anymore for these universities and these programs. There's no power left. They've been stripped of all their power, so they have a little bit of power here, right? They're trying to use it, which I agree with in this instance. Look, Sean, life is not fair, as we know, right? And these 2022 players, right? They kind of got screwed. The class after them, the 2023 class, gets an extra year. The couple classes before them got extra COVID year. They started to benefit from any of this. And I just sort of say, like, I'm sorry. I don't know why we change everything because of it. Now, where does it stop, right, Sean? Let's say that they are granted relief and they're allowed to play this season, which might happen. A judge might say the Big Ten and SEC can't have these rules in place. Then why couldn't a 2019 kid say, well, I didn't get a COVID year and I didn't get a fifth year? Well, I feel discriminated against. Sean, I didn't get a fifth year. I played 80 snaps as a true freshman. They changed the rules after I left. Do I get to claim some relief from a judge if I want to go back and play? If I get a speeding ticket and then 6 months later they changed the speed, the legal speed, do I get to go back and tell the judge, hey, man, you changed the speed. I didn't break the law? There's obviously no one's breaking a law here. But at some point, don't we just have to say, like, you kind of got screwed? I'm sorry. The rules are the rules. You didn't know at the time, but you went to the NFL. You've made a roster. You haven't made a roster. You've signed an agent. You've been part of the NFL. You're just not going to play college football anymore. At some point, we have to just put our foot down on some of this stuff. And I think Indiana judge will overrule this anyway. So all we're talking about now, it doesn't even matter. But at some point, I feel like you have to put your foot down, Sean, and say, this is it. Enough is enough.
I don't disagree with you at all. What I'm curious about is why it is judges, because the NCAA puts their foot down, or the conferences are going to put their foot down, or whoever's going to, like, the powers that be try to put their foot down, and then there's some district court judge in Louisiana who's just like, you got to pick that foot back up. We're not doing that. I don't know why, because you brought up a really great example. There's plenty of laws that have changed over the course of history, and it's not like everyone who broke that law just gets let out of jail.
Yeah. The judge thing is interesting, right? It's just that we have federal laws, state laws. Every state has their own law, and you can understand. And look, by the way, these are not really like judgments. For example, like what's happening is someone is suing, right? Mm-hmm. And while they're suing, the judge goes, okay, I'll grant you relief. You can now play. All right. Then the NCAA goes to a different court and they say, you know what? We're going to pause that ruling right now till we have an actual, like, it's not, no, does that make sense? No one's actually like winning anything. They're just judges changing their mind to give themselves time to give an actual ruling. So like that, and then you have obviously different states and you have federal. Like, it's all over the place, and it's a problem created by the NCAA. We were on the air for years talking about these type of topics, right? The NCAA just did not foresee any of this happening, and it's gonna cost them their sports. The wrong word to use, but everything's just gonna be. It's just different now, man. Like the whole sport is different. It's not going back the other way either.
The basketball involvement in this is funny, and I know that we're rounding into football season, but like we've been flirting with there's been pro-European guys that have played in college basketball for years. There's the line is muddy with that, and it's now that college football is being affected. Now is when these conferences feel like they need to address it. It just shows you how powerful college football is when it comes to the landscape. It
does. College basketball, it's interesting, right? Because feels like they have more of this happening in college basketball, and it just hasn't been the same. I mean, college basketball. I mean, they got dudes that play like G League games going back, which is like insane. I mean, these NFL players haven't played NFL games yet. I guess they played in preseason games. There's no minor league NFL. But yeah, college basketball just doesn't seem to have the same attention that the football players do. I think also like if this happened in May, you'd feel differently. But it's happening while players are leaving NFL camps now and going back to college. Like they're literally in. Like I think I'd feel differently if this happened right after the draft. I'm like, okay, all right. Like I get it. But I mean, the draft was months ago now. That was the end of April. Like life has moved on, man.
Would you rather block for Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland?
Just ask for a trade. Give me another. Are we talking just football or are we talking everything?
Well, obviously everything factors in here. Like,
I mean, I would not want to play with Deshaun Watson. But I think as a quarterback, he throws the ball quicker and on time. Like that's the thing I worry about most, right? Like if my quarterback's going to throw the ball on time or not. And Sanders just doesn't throw the ball on time enough. But I also don't want to play with a quarterback who's going to get booed by our fans every time he steps on the field. So, I mean, I would probably lean towards Sanders in this instance over Watson because Watson's a scumbag and he's not very good and he gets to get booed endlessly the entire season. And Sanders, at least, seems like a good kid, and he might hold the ball a little bit too long and make my life a little more difficult, but he'll make some good plays on the run. And Sanders is what he is, man. It's so interesting about the Sanders. Like this is a football player, right? And I talk about this a lot. Like I like using and thinking about sort of like historical trends, right? And this is important. So right now, there's only 2 starting quarterbacks in National Football League, like franchise guys. All right, so that I consider that guy second contract, right, Sean, or a rookie on a young player on a rookie deal, right? Like Drake May, right, franchise guy, rookie contract, some guy. There's only 2 in the NFL that are not drafted in the top 53 picks, right? 53rd is Jalen Hurts. It's Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy. All right, and both those guys were good almost immediately as rookies. Dak played from year 1, from game 1. I think Purdy ended up playing like week 12. And they were good immediately. And Sanders a 5th-round pick, man. Like, he's not that good. I think people have missed the plot on this, man. They're so into the politics is the wrong word. I don't know what you want to call it in the situation where the Sanders defenders are just like they're very supportive. They're very passionate about Sanders. And like he's a 5th-round pick, man. And now this is now 2 coaching staffs who said, we don't want you to be our starter from week 1.
Yeah, it's his place in the culture is very odd given his place on the field, if that is the right way to put it.
Yeah, and Tebow was a 1st-round pick who played a lot of football games.
Who you loved.
I love Tebow, yeah. A lot of the time we discuss those, it's like 1st-round picks, right? Like we don't argue about 5th-round picks very often. And it just seems like, I think sometimes we're just too online. At least I am. Like, I think all the time about like how would this topic be like in real life? Like my neighbor who's like a fringe football fan, if he was like talking about Sanders, I was like, he's 5th-round pick. He's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, he's not playing. That makes sense. Or some of this WNBA stuff, I'd be like, he would, if I bring it up to him, he'd be like, yeah, wait, really? That's what's happening? Like we're just so online. Like, are people in real life really arguing about Sanders' like viability as a long-term starter as a 5th-round pick? It feels like such an online discussion.
It is very much.
Right,
is there a week 0 game that you're actually looking forward to?
I took USC over 48.5 points against San Jose State. I was doing some research on this.
I do love how when I ask a question about a game you're actually looking forward to, you just go to what you are willing to bet on.
Well, because that's how I'm going to watch football this weekend.
Yeah.
I was looking this up today. So USC loves, dude, to run it up on these teams. So the last 3 times they played like a San Jose State, it was Utah. I have my notes right here. I was doing this before we got on the air. It was Utah State in 2024, Missouri State last year, and Georgia Southern last year as well. They went well over 40.5 points. But they scored 14 points, 17 points, and 14 points in the fourth quarters of those 3 games. That's a lot of points. For reference, by the way, Oregon last year played Montana State in week 1, Oklahoma State in week 2. They scored 7 total fourth quarter points in those 2 games. Like USC, they just run it up, bro. They love to do it, and there's nothing wrong with it. But they're going to score a ton of points this weekend. I want to watch that game. Obviously, some interest in the Dublin game. The loser of that game, like their season just goes down the drain fast. Go look at the results the last couple of years. I'm curious about Stanford with Tavita Pritchard. In week 1, just to sort of see where they're at. I talked to him at AC Media Day. I like talking with him. So there's a lot to get. There's Thursday night. There's a FCS Thursday night.
You're going to be watching that?
I don't know. If I have a bet on it, maybe I will. I know you'll be locked into some Weber State playing Thursday night.
Are they?
Who's the Weber State opener? Do you have your pocket schedule handy?
I don't have it in front of me.
Do you remember when we used to get like pocket schedules?
Yes.
I think my dad would keep like the UCLA one in his wallet.
That's so fantastic.
The
pocket schedule not as good as the magnet schedule, the fridge magnet schedule.
Yeah, we had both of those. Before I get out of here, everyone go to my Twitter at Jeff Schwartz. Can we talk a second about my son's video that I posted on there?
Oh my gosh,
day?
It's so good.
So my son is 12.
He's awesome.
He just turned 12. He's the best kid of all time, and he was going to his first bat mitzvah party this weekend. Like the first party, he has to wear like a jacket to. So I told him, in Temple in the morning for Temple, you have to wear a collared shirt, right? Like a white collar shirt. He wore a blue blazer and some slacks. And for the party, I was like, look, bro, you got to wear your jacket there to the country club. Like you can wear a polo underneath. Like you can wear a polo underneath. You can take it off. Like, you're 12. Well, who cares? So he goes to the party. All right. My wife texted me a video on Sunday morning from a security camera that we have under a mirror in our house. And my son was doing like shadow boxing and kickboxing with the jacket on. And I asked him afterwards, I was just testing to see if I can move in it.
Dude, it's the right thing to do.
He threw about 3 punches. He did it like an elbow punch. What's that called when you throw your elbow like that?
It's called an elbow.
A what?
It's called an elbow.
Okay, he threw an elbow. He did like a kick.
He did a kick, then he did a jump kick.
I was like, he's like, I'm ready to go, Dad.
Dude, it's so sick. It's awesome because we've all done that. Every one of us goes in front of a mirror and you make a different face. It's not your real face. You're trying to look better in the mirror. You suck your gut in, right? But when you're younger, maybe you throw a couple of punches. Maybe you're making sure you got your mobility. You never know what's going to happen at a bat mitzvah.
I just love it.
So good.
He's never been in a fight ever. Like, there's never been a fight. He's not close to a fight. There's no need for him to know any of those skills ever.
Hey, look, if someone tries to cut in when you're dancing with your lady at the bat mitzvah, come on.
It's the best. It's just Norman Schwartz.
Go look at the video on Jeff's Twitter. It really is great.
You hear if you turn up the volume, you can hear the noises he's making with his mouth too, like hoo 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 hoo. Like you hear, like he's making noises with his mouth.
So awesome.
And that was like legitimately 10 minutes before he went to the party.
Does he know that you've put this out for the whole world to see?
Yeah, he knows. Yeah, he don't care.
Was he mad?
No, he don't. He laughs so hard.
Dude,
he loves it. So
he is really the best. That's awesome.
He's an awesome kid. I love that kid. I
Oh.
love my daughter too, but they just different kids. It's so good. Oh, I loved it. I feel like that's some of your influence on us. The fighting.
I hope so. All right, we got to try to stay on clock, so I'm going to cut you loose. But you're the man.
Buddy.
Thanks
Good
for joining
talking
us.
with you. All right, bye, bud.
That's Jeff Schwartz, former NFL player, Oregon Duck, betting expert. Not going back to get more eligibility and trying to play. Jeff Schwartz is actually the kind of person who, if he lived here in Utah, I would be sending him to Southern Steer Butcher in Saratoga Springs, and he would make the trip. Even if he was up here in Salt Lake where I'm at, 1705 North Redwood Road down in Saratoga Springs, and he would walk in and he would talk to Dan and Aubrey, and he would say, look, I need this exact cut. I need a bone-in ribeye. I don't want it to be an inch thick. I need it 1 3/4 thick. He would have very, very particular interests on the cut of meat because he's a bit of a gourmand. Jeff is the kind of guy who knows exactly what he wants from his butcher. They can accommodate that. at Southern Steer. They'll cut that thing for you while you wait. All right, you want the big tomahawk steak that's been dry aged. They have the dry aging locker right there. You can go in, you can point at it. I want that one. If you're not necessarily that discerning with the palate or that discerning with your meat, maybe you're not somebody who knows exactly what the best fit is or what kind of ribs you should be feeding your guests for the college football barbecue. Let Dan and Aubrey walk you through it, or better yet, let them give you one of the pre-made meals or 3 of the pre-made meals. You can get 3 pre-made meals, sides, main meat, everything for less than $60, $59, everything you need for 3 complete meals. You need the seasonings, the salts, the rubs, the jams, the sides, the chips. They have it all down there at Southern Steer, and they're going to give you a smile. They're going to give you some advice. They're going to treat you like the neighborhood butcher used to treat your grandma and your grandpa. It's that concept, but with a modern twist at Southern Steer Butcher. Tell them OC sent you. Join the Southern Steer Rewards Club for the daily and weekly savings and take advantage of clean, fresh meat, hormone-free, antibiotic-free. It's the kind of stuff you should be feeding your family now, and you can do it without breaking the bank at Southern Steer. 1705 North Redwood Road in Saratoga Springs. All right, red and blue next. Jerem Jordan's going to swing by, and we'll talk the latest out of BYU. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Time for a little red and blue, brought to you by Murdoch Ford Santa Quin. We check in on the BYU side of things with Jerem Jordan. If you've been procrastinating all summer long thinking about buying a new vehicle, that procrastination for once might have actually paid off. We're in the final days of their summer sales event at Murdoch Ford Santa Quin, which means 0% APR for 36 months, $1,000 toward your down payment, plus $500 extra for the final day's bonus cash. So waiting got you an extra $500. Head down there to Murdoch Ford Santa Quin, 985 West Summit Ridge Parkway in Santa Quin. Massive, massive inventory, massive lot, anything you need. And if they don't have exactly what you're looking for in the right color, the right trim package, they will find it for you. Tell them OC sent you. Or tell them Jerem Jordan sent you. Hi, Jerem. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Tell them I sent you and get another 500. No, just kidding. That's not part of the bill. But you can try.
You could try. Just say, hey, Jerem told me. They might honor it.
Like,
You never
we
know.
don't know who this Jerem is, but yeah.
Okay, Jerem, we've been talking a little offensive line at the University of Utah because it's one of the big questions with this year's roster. And I like to do these over-unders where we predict final stats for the season before we get any gameplay. This one I feel like is important for Utah. It's going to be important for BYU as well because similar to Utah, they got a mobile quarterback. They've actually got a lot more returning experience on their offensive line. And, of course, if you could protect your QB, he can throw the ball downfield to the wide receivers, and then your offense starts humming. I set the over-under for Utah football at 19.5 sacks total on the season. That would have been good enough for top 5 last year in the Big 12 Conference. Where would you put BYU? Where's a reasonable number for BYU's offense and the fans to expect? If we give up this many, that's probably the max. Less than that will be okay. More than that, we're starting to question things.
Probably sub 20. So last year was 16, which is a pretty low number. BYU did a nice job protecting Bear. And Bear's very versatile and mobile where he can get out of stuff and at least scramble forward. He's good about keeping his eyes downfield. He doesn't just bail early. BYU really emphasized the pass game in fall camp because they were pretty comfortable with kind of where the run game is. Although I talked to the offensive coordinator, Aaron Roderick, today, and he said, today we ran a lot just to make sure they felt comfortable at kind of the very end of fall camp here. So I'll go sub 20. I just think BYU is going to be on a lot of short third down distances because of the tremendous run game and good tight ends. So, yeah, give me sub 20, man.
Yeah, I mean, so similar number. If we set it for BYU at 19.5, I think most people are going to take the under and think that they won't hit 20. That's kind of where a lot of Utah fans are netting out right at that number. And obviously, if you're BYU, given the returning talent on the offensive line, and there are just fewer questions there, right? So I think
you're not replacing 2 first-rounders. Like, that's an incredible feat, right, last year from Utah. 3 starters are back, and the 2 guys that you kind of plug in played a lot anyway, Sonny Mocassini and Kyle Sparchoke. So, yeah, you got Bruce Mitchell, one of the best centers in America. Andrew Gentry could be a day 3 tackle taken. And then Paki Finau comes over from Washington. He played a lot of guard. His left tackle's new, but he's played a lot. And so, yeah, it's a group that BYU thinks can block for L.J. Martin to get a bunch of yards again.
All right, so we're very excited to have real football to talk about this weekend. Next week when you join me for some red and blue, we're going to get to react to like at least one Big 12 opponent, TCU, and what they looked like. That's going to be wonderful. But right now, these weird storylines are still dominating college sports, and today's battle is being fought, again, legally, over eligibility being granted to former NFL players or guys that were on a roster or got cut from a roster or whatever, returning to college football. Your thoughts on how that fits, especially through the BYU lens, who they're okay with it on the basketball front. What about football?
Yeah, it's interesting. Right? I kind of wish I would have at least taken a law class or 2 just so I could speak a little better on all this legalese with sports. It's wild, right? So I'm looking at it a couple of different ways. One is a preseason game where you're like actually in camp for basketball this season that grossly different from, say, a summer league game, which is more like OTAs. Like, the timing is interesting, right? Because the season's about to start. That feels like it's too late. It feels like it's too late to suddenly add a dude from the NFL. In the case of a certain Michigan State commitment for BYU men's basketball, obviously I want this dude to play for BYU. He's awesome. He's going to help this team a lot. He's going to be a stud. Selfishly, I don't want it to have anything to do with the NBA guys. And it's mainly just these fifth-year guys from 22 that we're talking about. This isn't going to be a consistent issue, I wouldn't imagine, although I wouldn't put it past anybody to just try and get some injunction in whatever state to selfishly be able to play in the future. But it feels like this is kind of limited to this year. Maybe not. The NFL one feels like it's just too late. The NBA, no one's playing preseason in the NBA. We've got a few months. Like fifth-year guys out of college. Maybe that's just because I want certain Michigan State guy to play. But I guess I feel differently about the NFL guys versus the NBA guys. And that pertains to BYU. They did not pick up a single kind of new fifth-year guy late add. Not a single one was added. They kind of had their team locked and loaded, and we're good to go.
As it pertains to the basketball front, and you're referring to Jackson Kohler, who, of course, is the guy we saw in a Jazz uniform, but also is going to be in a BYU uniform, at least as of today. Looks like he's going to be eligible to be in a BYU uniform for this upcoming season. And we get the announcement late yesterday that Noam Yakov for Utah is not going to be eligible, and R.J. Luis at LSU, who was traded in the NBA, he is eligible right now at LSU. And look, it's easy for
if you're traded, it's over, right? Like if you were in a trade.
It feels like if you were involved in a trade, you can't play college sports anymore. If you're involved in an NBA trade, but
it's almost laughable. Like I'm literally laughing out loud because of how silly this is. Yeah.
But like if you're a Baton Rouge district judge, you're just like, no, I want this guy to play, and all of this falls under the umbrella or the attempted umbrella of this Protect College Sports Act that would supersede all these district and local judges being able to make these injunctions or grant these temporary restraining orders. At least we think. I'm not any more of a legal expert than you. But on the basketball front, on the football front, on the whatever else front, are we finally reaching a point where it's like, okay, this government intervention truly is needed at this point, or we're going to shake apart the fabric of college sports in a way that alienates too many people?
Who's in charge has always been the question, right? Even when the NCAA was running, it was like, are they in charge? Do they have power? There's no front-facing commissioner. You know, the SEC and Big Ten are kind of posturing to be in that. Like, it's very interesting. And the fact that the SEC and Big Ten are talking about, hey, we might make rules against this, and then, you know, the conversations and reports out there from Ross Stellinger, you know, sports about like, hey, you know, Big 12 and ACC might do this, the Power 4 might do this. So we'll see kind of who steps in until they actually pass that bill, you know, which they might in like a month from now. Then, yeah, who's in charge and what's legal? Like, as long as it is allowed, I understand why people are trying. Like, it's within the rules right now. Is it chaotic? Is it crazy? Is it out of hand? Absolutely. We got to figure this out, man.
The aforementioned Week 0 game happens in Aviva Stadium, Dublin, Ireland. 10 a.m. Mountain Time kickoff, North Carolina, TCU. Obviously, the by extension intrigue for the local fans here is that TCU on the schedule for BYU, on the schedule for Utah, means that we need to know a little something about this team. And they, to me, are one of the squads that could kind of sneak up on the rest of the Big 12, not being talked about a ton in the preseason. It's kind of been BYU, Texas Tech, Utah, Houston, TCU, a bit more of an afterthought for a lot of people. How closely will you be paying attention to this North Carolina-TCU matchup?
Listen, I'm the OC for the Mapleton first and second grade tackle football game, and my son's a quarterback. So that's my real focus this Saturday morning, making sure I can get our hopefully line to block. They haven't really blocked yet in the two games we had. So it's going to be a lot of quick game, Sean, a lot of just dump outs, hitches, little outs. You know, we're not going deep that much. After that, when I get home, and I'm coaching a volleyball game as well, then I will watch Jaden Craig and the Harvard transfer and TCU kind of get after and see what they are. They have a new OC in Gordon Samus who came over from UConn. They had a nice year. They're going to be more balanced. Like TCU with that always pretty good defense and all the athletes they have. And they've won 18 games last year. It's like they've been sneaky pretty good. Can they get over the hump this year and actually challenge for a conference title? I'm not so sure, but I do think that they will be a challenge, especially BYU in week 4. That's a big game. Like it goes 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 for BYU in the biggest games. Week 2 is Arizona at TCU. In early October is a big one. Week 6 Notre Dame. BYU has to be ready for that. And Craig's a guy that played a ton at Harvard, comes over, and he's the guy now taking over for Hoover, who's at Indiana. So, yeah, I'm very intrigued. Hoping TCU has a tremendous season and has, a couple losses in league to, BYU and Utah here. That'd be great. But I do think they could vie for kind of a top 6 Big 12 spot this year.
The Senior Bowl watch list. It's watch list season, obviously. Bear Bachmeier, congrats.
Oh, yeah.
Davey O'Brien watch list. Bruce Mitchell's on the Remington watch list, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah. Remington sounds the most English, so I love that one. The Remington watch list, yeah.
I'm actually very pleased with the committee for the Remington Award, because this year I think there were 30 guys on the list. When I was doing Pac-12 radio, there were 70 guys on the list one year. And I was like,
Did you see the Joe Moore Award watch list yesterday?
I did not.
They did best offensive line. They did every single FBS team, all 138 were on it. We're watching every single team. It was so good.
I actually love that, a little tongue-in-cheek. Like, this is our watch list. It's literally everyone. That's great.
San Jose State, congrats, you made it.
Well done. The Senior Bowl watch list, though, named 6 BYU players as top 300, top in their position group. And it is a lot of the same names we have been talking about all offseason. Isaiah Glasker, Evan Johnson, L.J. Martin, Falatau Satawala, Keanu Tanuvasa, Kedu Luave. Anyone going to force their name into these types of conversations by the end of the year?
I think Bruce Mitchell, we're just talking about him. I do think he's a top 5, top 10 center in college football. I think he could very well be drafted. 6'4", kind of a taller center, 305, great experience, a lot of winning. Dude was PFF, highly graded. He was all Big 12 last year. He's not lost a step. If anything, he'll hopefully be better. So I do think Bruce Mitchell was kind of the one where I was like, hey, I think he should be on there. Everybody else I agreed with.
The rest of the slate before BYU actually takes the field next Saturday, and we'll have you on next week so we can talk a little bit more about some of these things. But obviously, BYU is going to dominate attention for you and all the folks involved and the fans of that BYU team. But what games? Like I'm sure you want to get a sense of Utah, but you're probably not going to be like, oh, whatever they are against Idaho is what they're going to be for the rest of the season. So, what games before BYU kicks off have the most of your attention?
Yeah, definitely UNC and TCU, like you mentioned. Intrigued by just about everybody in the league. Week 0, week 1, like I'm stoked. There's a handful of kind of good games out there. Colorado, Georgia Tech is kind of a sneaky one. Although Colorado, I don't know that they're going to be that good, but I am intrigued. Oregon State playing Houston is interesting. Oregon State is going to be BYU's season opener next year, but Oregon State plays Houston and Texas Tech in the first couple weeks. So I'm interested to kind of see Big 12. Their Baylor-Auburn is intriguing in week 1 to me. I like that one a lot. And that's kind of it. There's not too many kind of barn burners there. There's kind of 12 or 13 non-conference games total, like against the Power 4 opponents, that intrigue me. And, I think BYU Notre Dame ends up being probably your most visible, high-end kind of top 1, 2 top 15 teams preseason. That'll be interesting in week 6. But, Big 12's got to show up in these non-conference games. There's probably a certain amount of games that they need to have some good wins. Oklahoma State, if they can compete with Oregon, well, I think that'd say a lot. Utah with Arkansas is going to be interesting, notably. So, yeah, I'm excited. Listen, after covering BYU as an independent, where you're just like on a farm by yourself out in the middle of nowhere, if you will. Now, like being in like the rich neighborhood, if you will, it's going, oh yeah, all the neighbors. I hope that everyone's good. We argue about the HOA, like it's just the swimming pool. Yeah, the grass is too tall, whatever. It's fun to just be team Big 12, and BYU hasn't had that, and now it's year 4. We're getting used to it, and like it's been cool because the league needs to try and get 2 teams into the playoffs. 1 obviously is going to happen, but it'd be nice if 2 emerged, and they have to have great regular seasons, and those non-conference games will play be a big factor at the very end.
Last thing before I let you go, when we talk a week from today, will either the NCAA or the conferences or the U.S. government or an executive order or something, will there have been a meaningful stoppage to NFL players returning to college football by this time next week?
It's a good question. I wonder if the leagues themselves will kind of govern that. And will the Big 12 feel like, hey, we need to do what those leagues are doing? Because if you don't, you could get a bunch of those guys in your league. Do you then become kind of do you get beat up by those leagues in the court of public opinion? You know, legally, what does that look like? So it could be very interesting. It just feels so late in the game. Like BYU literally tomorrow is prepping for Utah Tech in game 1. Like you can't just add somebody suddenly and feel like, yeah, we did everyone a solid here that has been here in the weight room all year. We don't know what you've been up to, but we added. I don't know. It's just very chaotic, man.
That's Jerem Jordan in a conversation. Red and Blue is brought to you by Murdoch Ford Santa Quinn. Right now, $1,000 off your down payment, $500 of extra final summer days bonus cash, and 0% APR for 36 months at Murdoch Ford down in Santa Quinn. Jerem, good luck to your Little League team this weekend.
Thank you. I just hope we get in the end zone like 3 times. That's kind of the goal here.
Oh, just 3. Wow.
Yeah. Super high standard here.
All right. Thanks, bud.
Thank you. See you, John.
Jerem Jordan. Great stuff as always. Utah has named their football captains for the 2026 season. I'll tell you who they are next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. We're playing this for you on the Sean O'Connell Show because one of the iconic stars of country music, really transcendent beyond that into television and movies and other genres of music and just pop culture in general, Dolly Parton, no longer with us. Rest in peace, Dolly. 80 years old. Just 4 days ago, she did an interview where she talked about how she's had some tough times with her health as of late. And Dolly Parton has gone to the other side. So a 60-year career in entertainment is really something. That's about how long she's been in the public eye. Rest in peace, Dolly. James, you texted this to your wife and ruined her day?
Yeah, I said, hey, you hear about Dolly? And she goes, well, thanks for ruining my day. I said, I put a sad face emoji. Like, I don't know. It's not like I was being heartless about it.
You don't know what else you're supposed to do besides the sad face emoji?
Yeah, she was actually focusing on work, which was, like, that's weird. She hadn't heard it yet. I figured she'd heard it because she's, tuned into the pop culture and has been a lot more than I am, and has been a bigger Dolly Parton fan than me. But apparently, I'm the one who broke the news, and now I get blamed for having a bad day. So whatever. I guess I'll wear that.
I'm going to say that I don't want to reduce Dolly Parton to her looks because she was obviously incredibly talented, and incredible musicality and a great legacy there. But has there ever been a more beautiful 80-year-old than Dolly Parton? Has there ever been a more attractive 80-year-old on the planet than Dolly Parton? Because, I mean, I didn't see her yesterday, but it's not like she's been out of the public eye for very long.
No, and to make this a sports discussion, noted Tennessee Vols fan, she's been on the field.
Okay,
just obligatory bring it back to sports on the Sean O'Connell Show. No, she was recently on the field singing the national anthem, right? Was that just last season before a Vols game, Tennessee game? So, yeah, seen her recently. She was still definitely looking good. You're like, no way she's 80 looking at her like that.
Dang, Dolly.
Shout out to the SNL Celebrity Jeopardy too. I'll just leave that there.
She's yeah, okay. Okay. We'll leave that alone. Great songwriter. A lot of people don't realize that some of the songs that were made iconic and really launched careers of other artists were written by Dolly Parton. Like she was a big time songwriter. The most famous was how Whitney Houston took her version of "I Will Always Love You" and made it huge.
Yeah.
Massive.
That was her. So I don't know if you saw on Twitter, there's a video message from her nephew who said that Dolly asked him to do this in the event whenever she passed away, to record a video for her fans. And at the end of the video, there's a great picture of Dolly's face, and it says, "I will always love you."
I like
try
that.
Try not to cry when you watch that.
Okay, wow. All right. Never been to Dollywood, but I hear it's cool. And she's a great legacy of philanthropy and music and everything else. So,
and her and Kenny, because Kenny Rogers passed a couple years ago, right? Her and Kenny singing "Islands in the Stream" up in the great beyond right now, with their spouses awkwardly looking on.
Why you got to make it weird? I don't really know how to transition away from the death of a megastar to sports talk, but that's what we do here. We're on the Sean O'Connell Show. We don't mind a little awkwardness.
Yeah, R.I.P.
By the way, are we in the first segment of hour number 3 or the last segment of hour number 2?
This is called Radio Magic. We are still in the noon hour.
Okay, we're in the second. Okay, we're in the tail end of hour number 2 for the Daily Dump. All right, Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling.
But no guests.
Allows us to make great radio magic.
Yeah.
So I
no guests in start of hour 3 at 1 o'clock. So we can go a little longer, and as we technically end hour 2.
Because normally I'm very disciplined with the clock management, so this will be.
Yeah, this is very strange.
This will be an outlier, but so we got the news today that Utah has named their captains for the 2026 season. Now, the team elects these individuals to represent them on the larger scale, the coin toss, things like that. And there's one name that's on here that is, I'll say, a bit of a surprise for me. Devin Dampier named captain. That's not the one that surprises me. Your starting quarterback who's wildly popular with his teammates even when he showed up as a new player last year. Devin Dampier is the team captain. Wayshawn Parker, everyone we have talked to has sort of offered testament to the hard work that Wayshawn Parker put in during the offseason, the lifting program, the conditioning program, spring ball, all that stuff. So Wayshawn leading by example, and his teammates have rewarded that by electing him a captain. Big Alex Harrison, the projected starting center for this team. You always want to have an offensive lineman that is either like borderline captain or an official captain. It's an important position to have not only great players at, but like vocal leadership at. And Al Harrison seems to have stepped into that role pretty comfortably. So congratulations to him for being named a captain. Jonnu Hall on the defensive side of the ball. He should be your best linebacker this year. You could make a case he should be your best defensive player this year. He has been named a captain. Nate Ritchie has been named captain, starting safety, or we think will be a starting safety, although that room is deep and talented, and who knows what it actually looks like. And this is the one that surprises me, and I mean this as a compliment because obviously you have earned your place with your teammates in a way that the media is not fully aware of, or at least this media member is not fully aware of. Trey Reynolds has been named a team captain for this Utah football team. He has never really been a full-time starter as of yet. The expectation is, of course, that he will be this year. He's been an excellent special teams player and kind of a third/fourth linebacker option, and a guy that there was always incredibly high upside on. But Trey Reynolds being named a team captain denotes to me that he has put himself into a different category of not only leadership, but expectation and contribution by his teammates. In the NFL, sometimes you get just like by default one of the really veteran special teams guys who's a consummate pro and he's been around for a long time. Like that guy will be named a team captain. It's a bigger deal to be a team captain in college sports because it's like everyone wants to be one. When you're at the pros, there's plenty of guys, it's their job. They're punching the clock. They don't want the extra responsibility. They don't want to be a leader. They don't want to be vocal. They're just like they're there to earn the paycheck, to win the games. They're there to do what they have to do. But it's not the thing that it's just not quite the same atmospherically or culturally or whatever else.
It's the same way high school sports, obviously, too, where like when you vote for the captains, it's like who's the most popular guys on the team. But like as someone who was not one of the best players on the team, on the basketball team that I played on, and was not someone, and thus was not someone that would be ever considered captain, it was, for me, it was like, oh yeah, that guy, like he's cool. I definitely got to look up to him, and like you have a lot of that with high school especially, and I think you have that a little bit in college still too.
Well, yeah, in college you want your captains to be guys that are going to be on the field and are going to be some of your best players on the field. It's rare that someone is given a captain nod who's not a starter and the best of the starters. And Trey Reynolds, there's no reason that he hasn't like earned this from an outsider's perspective, because as much as we pay attention to the program and try to have sources in the program, things like that, you're an outsider unless you're actually in that locker room. And I wasn't fully aware that he had earned this place in the hearts and minds of his teammates. And that is encouraging for me because, man, your linebackers are kind of like the heartbeat of a defense anyway, but a guy that doesn't come in with like the preseason all conference type stuff, not a ton of returning production, not a lot of starts under his belt. So good for you, Trey Reynolds. I love to see this. And I guess it just again informs you of the fact that there are changes happening up there, and we're going to see what this team actually looks like. But this changes my expectation of Trey Reynolds as a player and team, like his stats. This changes what I expect from him from a stats perspective. Fair or not, it does.
Yeah, and Sly has been one that was really high on him as we saw him get on the field for the first time a little bit last season. And this offseason, I've heard Sly talk about him as a guy that he expects to make an even bigger leap this year. Obviously, guys like Lander Barton, veterans like Lander Barton have left. They're not coming back. He's not bouncing back from what we've heard from the NFL.
No boomerang.
No boomerang for Lander Barton. We'll see, I guess. And that opens up an opportunity for a guy like Trey Reynolds, who saw some time last year and played well in, I would say, limited action. And you expect even more when he's got the opportunity to play even more. And now, to your point, when you got the C on the jersey, it puts an even bigger spotlight on you. That being said, though, OC, there are always those guys every year, whether it's a backup quarterback that gets named captain, or was it Devin Kaufusi, who his last year in the program didn't play very much, but was named captain. He played a lot more the year before. I think we expected him to be a bigger factor the last year, but he just wasn't a big part of the rotation. He was named a captain. So I don't know. We'll see if any of these guys on the list this year are captains because they're very well liked, not necessarily because the team sees them as one of the best players.
Captains have been named at the University of Utah. We also had an announcement on some other important personalities. Your radio crew. This came out we knew this was going to be announced. I was hoping it'd be announced before Zach Moss came on as a guest yesterday so we could talk about the new role he's stepping into. But Bill Riley, voice of the Utes, stays on the play-by-play duty. Stevenson Sylvester moves up from the sideline into the booth. He will be the color analyst on your games this year. And Zach Moss will be doing radio sidelines on your official Utah broadcast, which, of course, can be heard right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.
I think Sly, people have heard him doing color on like spring games on the Pac-12 network over the years.
And on high school ball.
And on high school ball here locally. I think that we already know Sly is going to be really good. And we love having Zach on as a guest on both our shows here. He's been he's going to be a regular guest on this show. He has been somewhat regular guest with Spence over the years during Utah football season. We'll see. This is the first time he's ever done anything like this. I'm sure that he's not going to be as good as Sly was at sidelines right at the beginning, but as he gets more reps, I think he'll definitely be really good. He's gotten really good as a guest on the radio. I'm excited for this opportunity for him.
I'm curious because we've had for a couple of decades now former quarterbacks as the color analyst. And
yeah,
let's be honest, when you watch television and when you listen to radio, 8 times out of 10, the color analyst you're listening to is usually a former quarterback. Of course, on BYU broadcast, it's now Hans Olsen, who is a defensive lineman at BYU, and then played offensive line for a cup of coffee in the NFL and for a long time in the AFL. But, that's a different perspective. And then, of course, Sly is not going to see the game the way that former quarterbacks do. Scott Mitchell did a great job. Scott Mitchell lives in St. George now.
Well, yeah, and also we should mention, even though the games are on our station, we have at ESPN 700, we have no say on who is it's all University of Utah making that decision. So we don't know for sure why a change was made. We can that's for the guys on the Hill to answer.
Yeah, we're reacting to this the same way that the fans react to this. We don't have a say in any of this, but I'm curious because I like this line. There's not a lot of linebackers that are doing color analyst work like on a television basis.
J.J. Watt, not necessarily a linebacker, but he's been a guy the last couple of years, and now he's stepping in, filling in for Tony Romo, probably going to take over permanently for Tony Romo, but that distinction hasn't been made yet. On CBS, he's been like an outlier in the NFL ranks as a guy who's looked at as a lead analyst who is a defensive player, right?
So let's see. Matt Millen did a lot of color work for CBS, Fox, the NFL Network, and the Big Ten.
I feel like you'd see it every once in a while, like with Millen, Chris Spielman, college football and NFL a little bit as a defensive player, former defensive player, but like none of those guys have been the A team on the A broadcast team, at least not that I can recall. This will be the first time in a long time with J.J. Watt being on a network's A broadcast team as the lead color analyst.
Jonathan Vilma has done some stuff for Fox and ESPN. Dick Butkus used to be the color analyst on Bears broadcasts.
Okay. Makes sense.
Rocky Boyman. Okay, that's what I was trying to. Rocky Boyman was like a okay linebacker in the NFL, good college player, and he's done college football color commentary. He's on their J team. Pete Burkich, you don't know who that is. Neither do I. Former Minnesota Vikings linebacker.
Shout out.
Who does color work on the Vikings radio network. And Pat Angerer, who played for your Colts, right?
Yeah.
Pat Angerer is now on the Iowa broadcast. So there's not a ton of linebackers doing this. Sly, obviously, with NFL credentials and exemplary college football credentials. He's stepping into a role most linebackers don't get.
And he's really sharp. Anyone who's listened to him on the Utes broadcasts over the years, and like I mentioned, doing high school work, like this is something he's been ready for, and I expect him to be really good alongside Bill up in the booth.
Get Sly on the phone. I need to ask, is he going to have to wear sleeves in the booth? Because on the sideline, he's always got the pythons out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, if he's in the booth, he's not going to be able to go on the field to argue with referees, which is something that Sly does during games.
He's going to be coaching Zach. He's like, hey, if you're going to be sidelines, you got to live up to what I did, okay? You got to be in the game a little bit.
By the way, can I say this?
Oh, man.
I'm not going to pretend like Porter, our guy Porter Larson, him and Zach Moss are like real friends.
Yes, they took some classes together up at the U.
They've known each other a long time. They're like real friends, play pickup basketball together, like a bunch of stuff like that. They're actual real-life friends. I know Zach Moss like all of you know Zach Moss. He's a Utah great. I've talked to him plenty of times on the sideline and now obviously on the show. Zach, I think this is going to be a challenge for him. I think he's stepping outside of the box a little bit for himself because Zach is not an overly talkative, loquacious, loud type person. To be a sideline analyst, to be a sideline reporter, to be interviewing Morgan as he comes off the field, you kind of have to come out of your box a little bit, come out of your shell a little bit, right? I think this is Zach Moss, at least from my perspective, stretching himself a little bit, which is cool. It's cool to see.
Yeah, and you saying that, me mentioning that, hey, he's probably not going to be incredible at it day one. No one is when they start a new role. No, that's not saying we have all the faith in the world.
Get Zach
in Zach
on the
being
phone.
Awesome.
Get Zach on the phone, James, and tell him.
Exactly what I just said.
I don't think you're going to be good at this at the start.
No, like
Zach, that was James. That wasn't me.
It takes some reps, and you know what? Zach, I still hope you want to come on the show on Monday after me saying that. No, like he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be really good at this, and obviously, someone with that high a profile is always good to have on your broadcast, and just excited to work with this new broadcast team for sure. Coming up 9 days away, OC.
Last thing I want to sneak into the Daily Dump has nothing to do with Utah football, but there's no appropriate place to put this except the Daily Dump, and it's hilarious. Alexander Ovechkin went home to Russia for the summer and made headlines there because he got 33 speeding tickets and traffic violations just over the course of one summer. 33 tickets for Alexander Ovechkin. somebody did the work and compared how many traffic violations are on record for Wayne Gretzky in Canada whenever he went home to Canada. Can you guess the number of his entire career? How many moving violations, speeding tickets, traffic violations Wayne Gretzky had during his NHL career?
Is it a huge number?
It's the number 0.
It's 0. Okay.
Because he's Wayne Gretzky. If you're a cop in Canada and you pull over Wayne Gretzky, you're like, never mind, Wayne, proceed.
No, it's because he's an incredible driver. He just doesn't make those mistakes. He doesn't break the law.
If you're Ovechkin and you're in Russia and you get pulled over, they give you tickets apparently. What is wrong with these Russians?
Another reason to just not like Russia, for sure. Like, come on, treat your legends correctly, Russia.
Come on, 33 traffic tickets, though, in one summer is a problem. How do you get 33? Don't they suspend your license after, like, 4?
I mean, Russia's a different world, so
yeah,
who knows?
Apparently it is, because you know what? For better or worse, in the United States, we don't give our legends speeding tickets. Now, drunk driving, you have to enforce that.
Yeah.
Failing to signal, if you're Ovechkin and you get pulled over for that, you just roll down the window and just be like, I'm the greatest scorer in the history of the NHL. And it's like, oh yeah, of course. See ya. Come on, Russia. Come on, Russian traffic tickets.
Get it together, Russia.
You need to get it together in a lot of ways, Russia.
Yeah,
okay.
This is not the only way.
All right.
Sure. Can I just share a couple people chiming in on the Dolly conversation?
If you really want to go back there,
have James send the heart with bandage emoji to make it right. Send that to my wife. You know what? Thank you for that advice. I think I'll take you up on that. And then our guy Derek, I told my wife about Dolly Parton. She said, I guess she doesn't work 9 to 5 anymore. You probably thought I wrote that text. That's hey, I loved it, Derek. Shout out to you.
Are you allowed to divulge why Scott Mitchell is no longer a member of the broadcast team? I have no idea why he's no longer a member of the broadcast team. I don't know if there is a reason. I know this. Scott Mitchell lives in St. George. That might be why.
Could be, yeah, just too far away. Who knows? But again, that's one of the reasons, because we've gotten some of the. You saw in Twitter, OC, a lot of people like, oh, what happened to Scott Mitchell? We've gotten some texts about that. Is he going to be on the broadcast team? Whatever. We're not part of that decision making, so we don't know.
By the way,
be the university.
I don't even know if you realize this. I texted Scott about this. Somebody sent in a photo, like a Scott Mitchell 5x7 that they wanted him to autograph. Somebody sent it in to the station like last week. Scott hasn't been on the air for a while, but they sent it here, and we're like, with the self-addressed stamped envelope. I texted to Scott, and he was just like, well, I'm not there, so you could sign it for him. I didn't.
You didn't forge Scott's signature?
I should have.
Or you should. You know what? You should have just put your signature on Scott's picture.
That would be amazing. If you get an autograph, do you really try to read it? Because no one can read autographs anyway. I just sign it, Sean O'Connell, and someone's like, oh, that's nice. Thanks, Scott.
Sign it, PFL champion.
If you have to explain why you're signing it, then you shouldn't be signing anything.
Just to see if they notice. Like, oh, Scott Mitchell's not a PFL champion. What?
All right. Well, because of the magic of the Truck with the Duck and Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, we're actually 24 minutes into hour number 3, and we're actually going to start hour number 3 next. Can you believe that? It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All sound from Utah football camp is available at ESPN700sports.com and on the ESPN 700 app. Our friends over at Advanced Window Products are offering $2,500 off 10 windows or more right now. Lifetime warranty on the windows. We've talked about this. I don't think you fully appreciate what a lifetime warranty means. Right now, Nate Orchard and Jake Weber, who are the current owners of Advanced Windows, they are servicing warranties offered by the previous owners from years ago, in some cases from decades ago. It would be very easy for young owners of an established business, new owners, to say, oh, yeah, that promise was made between you and the people who came before us. We don't have to do that. It's legally, it's a separate entity now. But that's not how they do business. They take care of the customer, even if it wasn't their customer, even if they never saw a dime from the transaction. They take care of the customer. The reputation of the business, the quality of the business is what matters to them. There's not a lot of businesses left, even local companies. There's just not a lot of people that are doing it the right way every single day, the way they are at Advanced Windows. Nate Orchard has taken his diligence, his preparation, his obsessiveness about football, and he has placed that on being the best window guy in the world. If you're a homeowner, that benefits you because now there's a one-stop shop right here in Salt Lake City where the sales, the installation, the warranty coverage are all done by the same people from the same team. No middlemen, no runaround, no craziness. Get yourself some new windows, beautify your home, increase the energy efficiency of your home, take advantage of the many financing options that they've got. The whole point for Advanced Windows is to make it affordable and a purchase that you are happy with when you are finished. Worth the money that you spent on it. And right now, $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. 801-850-9100, advancedwindows.com. As always, tell them that OC sent you. We started the show today talking about some potential changes happening in and around college football, in and around college athletics. The Big Ten has decided to draw a line in the sand. According to multiple sources, Pete Thamel was the one who really took it public first. The Big Ten is putting together a new rule that will prevent players who have signed a pro contract, who have been in a training camp, who have declared for the NFL draft and not withdrawn their name. This will stop them from returning, from boomeranging back into college athletics. Even the SEC, while they put out a statement, no rule yet, they put out a statement, though, saying players should not be returning to college sports after flirting with the pros, after dipping their toes in the professional waters. The SEC a little bit softer on this line, it would appear, for obvious reason, because at least one of their member institutions, Louisiana State University, who has a significant amount of influence and money involved in all SEC dealings, they are ground zero right now for all of the bounce back, all of the boomerang players, basketball and football. R.J. Luis was part of an NBA trade. He's been part of 3 NBA teams. He's coming back and has been declared through temporary injunction from a Louisiana judge eligible to compete in this upcoming NCAA season. Noam Yakov for Utah basketball, he can't play. He's been told, nope, you're not going to be eligible. Utah has to put their contingency plan in place. Noam Yakov was not on an NBA roster, was not in an NBA training camp, was not in an NBA spring league, summer league.
The only thing you could say about Noam Yakov is he did declare for the draft and he never withdrew. He didn't go drafted, but so did Jackson Kohler.
Jackson Kohler, by the way, Michigan State, Utah Jazz Summer League. Like there's pictures of him in the Jazz uniform. He's going to be playing for BYU. So the convoluted nature and the inconsistent nature of what works, what doesn't work is problematic. Nobody can deny that. The Big Ten is becoming the first conference, the first league to step up and say, we're not messing with this. We're not doing this. And they mean it in football and in basketball. interestingly enough, this has been a storyline in basketball for months now. After the 5-for-5 eligibility got put into place, basketball players started to say, oh, wait, hold on. This NBA thing didn't work out the way that I want, and I now have potentially a fifth year of eligibility. I just finished up. I just cleaned out my locker a month ago, and now this ruling comes down that it's 5 years to play 5 in college sports. I want that fifth year. No, you can't have that fifth year. Well, my lawyer says I can, and this judge says I can, and so hence this flood of players. And I shouldn't say flood. It's really a trickle. It's only like a dozen or so players coming back in. And the NCAA didn't take any hardline approaches. The conferences didn't take any hardline approaches. Suddenly, when it affects football, when guys are coming out of a Tampa Bay Buccaneers training camp and preseason games where they had 3 tackles coming back and saying, I'm going to play for LSU, guys. When a guy gets cut from Cleveland after getting cut from New England, he's like, I'm going to go play for my old Ole Miss coach. I'm going to be at LSU. See you guys later. As soon as it starts to affect college football, now people react. Now people's attention is perked up. What can we do about this? What should we do about this? I'm really curious to see how the Big 12 comes out. They're meeting about it. The ACC is going to meet about it. The Big 10 is taking what I will call the high road. They're being the traditionalists. They're saying, guys, this is not good for the sport. It's not good for the current college athlete. It's not good for the high school athlete or the JUCO athlete. Let college sports be for people who have not played pro sports. Part of this 5-for-5 thing was to stop folks who should be in the pro ranks from staying in college. One of the big complaints with the COVID years was, since that 2020 freakishness that allowed effectively everyone to get 2 extra years of eligibility, you had 25-year-olds, 29-year-olds playing on college teams last year.
Yeah, way more than just the outlier. It used to just be, oh my gosh, did you hear a team has a 29-year-old?
It used to be literally what it used to be was guys that went to jail in high school or out of high school, or guys that joined the military right out of high school, or I guess there was the rare occasion of guys who went on a mission. They just never enrolled.
Yeah.
Right? Or they never re-enrolled.
You had, wasn't there at least one of, it wasn't any of those circumstances, but they hadn't been in college yet, and they're like 30 something, and like, I'm gonna try playing football, and they made the team. I think we had at least one of those before this too. Like it, but now it's like every team had multiple of those guys, it seemed like.
There's a guy right now who's like 45 years old who's on a D3 college football team because he just never enrolled in college. And then, he got in shape late and was just like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do this. That's fine.
Bunch of peptides, probably.
It's supposed to be like a once-in-a-lifetime, like an outlier thing.
Yeah.
I remember South Carolina many years ago had a guy who was a military. He did a career in the military. He did his 20 years like in the Army or whatever. Came out at 38 years old and walked on and played special teams for South Carolina. Like, great story. That's fun. That's cool. Indiana had 9 25-year-olds on their team last year, and they won a national championship. So there were people in college sports looking at it and going, this is bad. We don't want these grown men with their grown men bodies playing against teenagers. So let's fix this. Let's do 5 years to play 5. The Protect College Sports Act has been proposed to say it is 5 years consecutively from when you turn 19 or when you graduate high school, whichever comes first. Right? So that's the proposed fix. The current fix is not in place. The current fix is falling now to the conferences that are going to say, in the Big Ten's case, we can't do this. We're not accepting boomerang players, and they're not accepting them, especially in football. LSU wants to, but the SEC says that shouldn't happen. Are they going to fight with one of their own member institutions over it? As far as we know, in football, I don't see any boomerang players trying to get onto like a Texas Tech roster, an Arizona State roster, a Utah roster. If that happens, will the Big 12 say, no, Kenny Dillingham, you can't have this guy? will anybody say, Joey McGuire, we've already beat you up all off season long. You also can't have this guy who was on the Cleveland Browns last week.
Is this Brendan Sorsby's way of coming back? No, just kidding. He's not part of the NFL right now.
BYU is doing this in basketball.
Yeah.
Jackson Kohler was on a Utah Jazz roster sheet, and now he's on the BYU roster, okay? That is antithetical to the quote-unquote purity of college sports, if that even still exists.
So Jerem brought up that he's excited to see what the Big 12 does about this. He's intrigued by that. And it made me get like a kind of an evil idea for the Big 12. Be the last ones to make a hardline statement about this. Let the Big Ten's already done it. Let the SEC do it next. Let the ACC do it next, and then be the outlaw conference and just say, "Hey guys, come on in."
I don't think you can afford to do that.
That's the way you get good at that. That might be an easy way to quote unquote cheat the system and all of a sudden be really good at football compared to the other four conferences.
I should say this though, because I was very up in arms about the possibility of this happening in basketball last year with all the G League guys that were coming back onto college rosters.
Wasn't there a guy on BYU's roster too?
Yes.
Last year, yeah. He didn't end up being a factor, but he came in midseason.
He scored like a point and a half a game or something.
Yeah. So this is the second time that BYU's kind of taken advantage of this system, and of course we should bring up, if we're going to bring up BYU, we should bring up a guy like Lucas Longarita, who Utah got in midseason, but it's not quite the same, but still.
So the Big 12, if you're Brett Yormark, right? He's got an angel on one shoulder, he's got a devil on the other. And the devil on the other shoulder is saying, we could be the conference where these guys who are borderline NFL players can come back and play.
We could just wait it out, and once all the other ones have said we're not taking them, we could be the ones. Okay, you can come here.
Are we willing to do that? And I hope the answer is no.
Yeah, I do too. I kind of was like, if this were just fiction, right? OC, we all think about like that'd be a fun novel to read. That'd be a fun TV show to see how to play that out in a fictional world, like some of these ideas. But then when it comes to real world, I think most of us that think, oh, that's kind of a fun concept for fiction. If it ends up being real, we're all like, no, that's terrible. And I feel like that's what came into my mind as Jerem was like, I wonder what the Big 12 is going to do about this. Are they going to – maybe they'll just be the conference. Maybe there'll be a conference that says, no, we're fine taking these bounce-back boomerang players. And it made me go, that kind of would be kind of fun to have an outlaw conference. But that's only in like a fantasy world that's fun. That's not really fun in the real world, I don't think.
All right, we got to take another break here so we can attempt to stay near a clock. We'll do that. I'm going to give away some Utah State fair passes in the final segment, which is not next. We're going to do a short segment, then another break. Then after that, that's when I'm going to give away 4 passes to the Utah State Fair at the Fair Park coming up September 10th through the 20th. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. I have great news for you. We have college football, real college football this weekend. If there's bad news associated with this, it's for you Saturday golfers out there, because your Saturday golf now is either going to make you miss college football games or you just can't do it. That means this weekend is a perfect weekend for you to get out there to Stansbury Park Golf Course and finally try it out if you haven't yet. $50 for a round of 18 on weekends, $45 if you can make it out there on a weekday, which should be the move moving forward so you don't have to miss the full slate of college football. You just get on the I-80, you hop on out to Tooele County, you go to Stansbury Park Golf Course. The greens look great right now, despite the heat, the wind, the absolute baking temperatures that we've had. There's plenty of shady spots on the course. Challenging enough that it's going to keep you awake. Not so bad that you're going to lose a whole sleeve of balls, all right? They've got kind of a perfect mixture out there. The pace of play is excellent, a little less crowded than most of the places up and down the Wasatch Front here in the Valley, and really your time commitment getting out there and back because there's not a lot of traffic is going to be equal. Plus, gives you an excuse to get out there to Tooele County, which I promise is a lot different than the last time you went. Been a huge amount of development out there. It's really, really built up. So, go to Stansbury Park Golf Course. Tell them OC sent you. Book your tee time right now at stansburypark.gov/golf course. stansburypark.gov/golf course. Great rates, gorgeous greens, minutes away, totally worth it. Get on the I-80 and hop out there right now. Even if you don't have clubs in the trunk, you can just rent them while you're there. Clubs, cart, food, and a beautiful course waiting for you. You could be out there by about 2:30. Just tell your boss you're taking an early day. stansburypark.gov/golf course. All right. This is good news that James put in his rundown. I think it's good news. I think we should call it good news because while it's a sobering number, a new study says that 25% of NFL players whose brains were examined after they passed away, this is between 2016 and 2021, they had CTE. Now, why do I say this is good news? Because the last time we saw a study like this, it was like 97 out of 100 players had signs of CTE, which would suggest that maybe things could be improving. Now, whether that's the nutrition is better, the care is better, these are players from a later generation where the helmets were better, I think is probably the most likely explanation for the reduction, such a drastic reduction. Because the first time we saw a study like this, it was players, a lot of players who were spending most of their careers in the NFL in the 70s and 80s. And if you go back and you look at helmet technology from the 70s and 80s, it was bad. All right? If you passed away from 2016 to 2021, more likely that you were in like the late 80s, 90s, maybe even 2000s range. I think that if I were guessing, a reduction in the prevalence of CTE could be at least partially explained by improved helmet technology. It's also worth stating that there are current studies being underwent right now where, like, Matt Hasselbeck famously volunteered to be part of this thing. They are trying to find a way to diagnose CTE in living people. So you don't have to examine postmortem the brain of people who died between 2016 and 2021. And hopefully, when we get the 2021 to 2026 cohort of brains that have been examined, hopefully the 1 in 4 is now 1 in 10 or something like that. I can't tell you with any kind of confidence whether that number can improve beyond 25%, but the 25% number is way better than the last big study that was like 90-something%. So I guess we're happy about this.
Yeah, it absolutely is encouraging that the number may be going down. I will just read this from the ESPN story just to add some context to the number, though. One of the doctors, the study's lead author, Dr. Daniel Daneshavar, which I no doubt just butchered the last name there, but the lead author of the study says the estimate of 25% is on the, quote, low end. The study found that the maximum possible prevalence of CTE was around 97%. So the truth is somewhere in the middle, he says. So just that is the lowest possible one. Hopefully that's the reality of what is the actual findings of CTE is.
Can I be a little bit of a stickler here?
Yeah.
If you give me a range of 25 to 97%, I'm going to need you to narrow it down more than that.
Absolutely. That's
I'm
exactly.
sorry.
I'm like, now you've just confused the crap out of me, ESPN, with the way that you've framed this story and this study with the way that you've just given us a gigantic range like that. So does that mean like it's right down the middle? It's somewhere like 50 or 60%? I don't know. Hopefully it's the 25%.
I read this morning, and I was like, I'm going to put a Twitter poll up. If you're playing football today, would you wear a Guardian cap or the extra head protection, whatever the other Guardian cap equivalent is called? Would you wear that in games? Because they're legal. You can wear them in games. Very few players actually do. If you were playing football today, would you wear a Guardian cap or extra head protection in games? Knowing what we know about CTE, the dangers of, 57% of people said no. You're wearing them in practice. They're all wearing them in practice now. Would you wear them in games? 57% said no. There's no reason not to, except they don't look cool.
Yeah, and maybe they're not very effective. We don't actually know how effective they are. So if you're one of those people that are like, well, I'm going to look dumb and it's not going to help me that much, like, then I'm not going to wear it. I guess that I understand where you might be coming from there, but if there's even a 1% chance of extra protection, 1% less of a chance you're going to have a traumatic brain injury, like, or develop a terrible disease like CTE later, I mean, for me, that's enough for me to wear the Guardian cap. I don't care how I look if that's the case. But other people think differently.
According to publications, Guardian caps reduce linear and rotational impact forces 10 to 33%. What does that mean? According to the NFL, self-reporting from the NFL, they reported 50 to 60% drop in practice concussions for position groups required to wear Guardian caps during training camp. So that's what it's designed to do, prevent concussion. The NFL says it's working. The efficacy of a Guardian cap soft shell padding observed an average reduction of head impact severity by 9%. So would you, for a 9% reduction in force, would you wear something that makes you look like a lollipop? Right now, 57% of people say no. I pass no judgment either way. Those are just the poll results. All right, we'll give away a 4-pack of tickets to the Utah State Fair and wrap up the show next. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. The Utah State Fair is at the Fair Park September 10th through the 20th. I've got 4 passes for whoever can answer this question. 877-353-0700 is the number. I set the over-under for Utah's sacks surrendered this year at 19.5. So at Real OC Sports, tell me if you think they're going to hit the over or the under on how many sacks they give up. How many sacks did Utah's offense give up last year? In the 2025 season, how many sacks did Utah surrender on offense? 877-353-0700 for a family 4-pack to the Utah State Fair coming up September 10th through the 20th at the Fair Park. Final segment of the show brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100 for $2,500 off 10 windows or more. Tell them OC sent you, or that you heard about it on ESPN 700 and The Drive with Spence Checketts. That is next. Hi, Spence.
That's an excellent question. We were talking about this yesterday as far as, because the D-line, 34 sacks last year, second in the conference to Texas Tech. With how good that O-line was last year, I'm going to say more than 10.
It was more than 10.
I'm going to say less than 20.
It was less than 20.
I'm going to say 15.
It was 14.
14. Okay.
14 sacks surrendered last year.
It's a hell of a year.
It was a great year.
Yeah.
It was not top in the conference. Cincinnati gave up 8 sacks last year. And that was just as much about Brendan Sorsby as it was about their offensive line.
What's that guy up to these days? Quiet off season for him.
Kansas State only gave up 13 sacks last year. Utah gave up 14. BYU gave up 16. If I said the over-under for this year, Spence, is 19.5, you have a healthier Devin Dampier. His escapability is legendary when he's healthy.
Yes, it is.
You don't have 2 projected first-round picks starting at your offensive tackle. In fact, you are, as you know, replacing all 5 on the starting offensive line, although your center was just named a team captain. Good news. 19.5 would put you top 5. If you hit the under, you're tied for the top 5 in the conference last year. If you go over that, you're a little bit further down. You're top 25-ish nationally with 19 or fewer. You go 20 or above, you're outside of that range.
I'm going over. I'm going over. I hope it's under. Just like I think 8 wins would be wonderful. I hope it's 12 or 13 or 14. Let's get weird. I continue to be more curious than confident. I honestly don't know. I feel like if you're one of the people that is talking about this new O-line and new D-line as if we're not going to skip a beat, you may have forgotten what last year was. You may have forgotten just how, I mean, look, Devin's awesome. Wayshawn's awesome. The skill position players, Hunter Andrews, Brandon Pagan. And, last year, a lot to like about a lot of different pieces. But without the offense and defensive line, and this is a program dating back to Ron McBride that wants to build through the trenches, without the fronts on both sides last year, this is a 7-8 win team, and they won 11 games. Let's remember, they were 11-2 last year. That's an unbelievable season. I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic, but until I have some data at my disposal and not Idaho, I don't really know what to expect. Did you give an opinion yourself, over, under?
I think that you're slightly under because of Devin.
Okay.
Because if he's healthy, I mean, he played behind a pretty bad offensive line at New Mexico, and he got sacked 4 times. They gave up 5 total. 4 were Devin Dampier.
Yeah.
They had 1 good offensive lineman. Now, the competition was different, right? I think Dev and his escapability was heavily compromised last year.
Yeah.
And we didn't really get a full appreciation of that until all the way into the postseason, even though we could see something was not right.
Yeah.
When it's like double hernia surgery as soon as the season ends, and, stay off your feet and heal that ankle for a month. We didn't really get I didn't get a full appreciation until it was all over of how really compromised he was. If he stays healthy, and he's as healthy as he was even at New Mexico, he takes off like a half dozen sacks by himself.
Yeah.
So because of that, I think you can stay in. I don't think it's going to be 10 like it was a couple years ago. I think it's going to be probably in that 15 to 19 range.
Well, he told us when he sat down with you and I at Big 12. I still miss the Pac.
We all do.
At Big 12 Media Days, sponsored by Monster Energy. He told us for the first time, at least for me, it was like when Cameron Rising went on with Bill, when all the noise was going on. And in the moment, the way that the program decided to handle his injury, I felt put Cameron in a really bad spot. So he decided to book an interview with Bill, and for the first time was like, you guys don't get it. Like, my knee was completely rebuilt, and I don't know that I fully understood how unhealthy Devin was last year until he told you and I. I did it again. Big 12 Media Day, sponsored by Monster Energy.
Yeah, and that's why. I mean, last year I set the over/under at 9.5, not 19.5, 9.5, because he was coming off a 5-sack season, a 4-sack season for him, and he didn't have nearly the offensive line.
Yeah.
So I looked at it last year. I said, this guy behind this offensive line is not going to get sacked double digits.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
Now, he wasn't healthy. The offensive line went up against, Texas Tech. So there were some issues. But I think that you can keep it. That's why I said it 19.5. Over that, I think we're going, man, some missed opportunities there. Under that, you're in the top 25 range, and that is a wonderful season in Morgan's first year.
Yeah, it's a good line. And then the other dynamic, I need to see this offense. I know the walking line is Kevin believes in the same concepts Jason did, and they're going to cater the offense to the skill position. But then there are some people that believe, like Gordon Monson, who's going to be on the show today. I always called Witt like the dark overlord because he wanted the offense just 3 yards cloud of dust. We're running the football. And there are some people believe that Morgan has concepts in his head that he wants Kevin to throw the ball more. And if Devin is dropping back a lot more than he did a year ago, will the sack number go up? I don't know.
You want to know what Utah State's sack number was last year?
Sure.
You want to take a guess?
The way you're asking the question, Bryson Barnes, they threw it more. Over 20.
42.
42?
Last in the Mountain West Conference.
Oh, jeez. Well,
Bryson Barnes was the fourth most sacked quarterback in all of Division I football last year.
Yeah, I'll take the over.
That's Spence Checketts, host of The Drive. Stay tuned and listen to him for the next 4 hours. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll do it again tomorrow.